Chapter 1888. Chairman Mu. How do you do? Why you here? I'm truly ashamed of my lack of hospitality. The old chief smiled and raised both hands, intending to shake hands with him. Wuxia stood at the same spot with his hands in his trousers. He glanced coldly at the pair of hands that the man had extended to him, but his face remained cold and detached. He had no intention of shaking hands with him. It was as if he was stingy with basic greetings when it came to the old man. The old bureau chief was stunned. His hot face was stuck to a cold butt, and his nose was covered in dust. He was a little embarrassed. He looked down at his hands and realized that his fingertips were stained with dust. He quickly wiped his hands on his clothes and smiled. Chairman Mu, I'm sorry for the neglect. Please don't take it to heart. Only then did Wuxia gently shake his hand. Even so, his fingers did not curl at all. It was just an empty grip for a moment before he retracted his hand. However, the old director was already very satisfied. He was happy to shake hands with the rumored cold and arrogant CEO of Dishing Financial Group in front of everyone. It was a great honor for him, and he was very satisfied. Wuxia was already giving him a lot of face. The old bureau chief had been in a meeting at the headquarters when he received a call from his superiors. He knew that a distinguished guest had appeared in the bureau under his jurisdiction. He immediately reported it to the headquarters and rushed back in a hurry without having time to continue the meeting. Chairman Mu, I'm really sorry. I was in a meeting at the headquarters earlier, so I didn't know you were coming. It's just that, Chairman Mu, is there anything I can help you with? The old chief asked cheerfully. Xianxia, who was standing at the side, was frightened and surprised at the same time. More than that, he felt that the old chief was too snobbish. He stood at the side and asked a few questions, but the old chief ignored them all. Instead, he asked about Wuxia's well-being. It was obvious that he did not care about him at all. Wuxia interrupted the old chief's greetings. My father-in-law received a summons from the police station to come and identify the body. He has been waiting here for an entire afternoon, but no one has come to give him an explanation. Whether it's identifying the corpse or cooperating with the investigation, you haven't even gone through the normal procedures. How busy is your bureau? His words were calm and indifferent, but they were filled with judgment. Breaking out in a cold sweat, he stiffly turned around to look at Xianxia, who was standing at the side. This ordinary-looking middle-aged man was actually the father-in-law of the Mu Group's chief executive. He suddenly felt as if an iron weight had fallen from the sky, causing him to feel dizzy and disoriented. Thus, the old chief immediately went up to Xianxia. His face bloomed like a flower as he asked politely, "My apologies. I'm sorry. Sorry to keep you waiting. I didn't expect him to be Chairman Mu's father-in-law. May I know your surname?" "My surname is Yun. How do you do, Chief?" Xianxia suppressed his displeasure and greeted the man politely. "Excuse me, your bureau summoned me here. It said that a corpse was salvaged from the sea, and they need me to identify it." The old chief became serious at once when he said that. "A corpse? Has it been filed? I just received a call from your bureau, so I rushed over immediately. I don't know anything about the progress of the case, so I'm very anxious." Chapter 1889. With that, the old police chief led him and Xianxia to the office. Wuxia followed behind. It was only when they entered the office that they realized that the police officers, whom Xianxia had imagined to be busy, were sitting in the office, drinking tea and joking leisurely. When they saw the old police chief enter, they immediately stood up straight and regained their serious expressions. "Hello, Chief." Wuxia glanced at the noisy office and frowned. "It seems that your bureau is very busy. Busy drinking tea and chatting." The old police chief's face was full of embarrassment. He coughed, patted the table, and said sternly, "Is this your work attitude when I'm not in the bureau? Are all of you very free?" Everyone was shocked and lowered their heads guiltily. They were so scared that they did not even dare to breathe loudly. In front of Wuxia, the old police chief pretended to reprimand this bunch of people. As for these people, which one of them did not know how to read people's expressions? From the old police chief's expression, they roughly knew that it was either a superior who had come to investigate or a distinguished guest. They were very cooperative in putting on a show. This old gentleman received a summons from the bureau to come over to identify the body. Who's in charge of this case? Step forward. A young police officer stepped forward. Excuse me, are you Mr. Yun? Yun Yeqing glanced at him and felt angry. He had been sitting on a bench outside the door for a long time, yet the person in charge of the case was laughing and joking inside. How could he not be angry? Yes. But I'm sorry. I was busy just now and only had time to take a sip of tea. How about this? Come with me. I'll bring you to identify the victim's clothes and belongings. With that, Yun Yeqing and Yun Shishir followed him into the morgue. Mu Yazha also wanted to follow. The old police chief immediately stopped him. Chairman Mu, please sit here for a while. I'll report to you if there's anything. Yun Shishir also said, wait for me here. I'll wait for you. Mu Yazha nodded. If you're hungry, you can go and have dinner first. Remember to call the two little guys and tell them that I may not have time to have dinner with them. Okay, don't worry. Yun Shishir nodded and followed him. The body was in the autopsy room. Because it was involved in a murder case, the body could not be brought back for burial. After entering the autopsy room and putting on masks and sterile gloves, the police officer led them to the display room. Opening the box, one of the bags was filled with personal belongings collected from the scene where the body was found, and the other bag was filled with the victim's clothes. Even though the clothes had been corroded by the seawater for a long time, causing them to fade and become tattered due to the impact of the current and the fishes, Yun Yeqing could still recognize them at a glance. They were the clothes he had bought for Li Qin on her birthday at the mall. She was still wearing it that day at the hospital. Then, the mother and daughter disappeared without a trace. As soon as he saw that piece of clothing, there was a boom in his head. It's her. Yun Yeqing was dumbfounded. His face was ashen as if it had been painted white. Chapter 1890. Yun Shishir was stunned for a moment. She barely recognized the clothes. They were the clothes that Li Qin had worn before. She wore a red jacket and was dressed in high-end fashion. Li Qin loved to dress up, so even though they were tight on money, she was always willing to splurge on her clothes. These were the clothes she wore in the summer. Judging from this, if this body really belonged to Li Qin, then she had already been killed in the summer. Could it be a coincidence? Yun Shishir was still in disbelief as she raised a guess. There are some personal belongings of the deceased here. Please come and identify them. The police officer placed the bag of belongings on the table and pointed. A watch, a black wallet, an earring, a gold ring, and a jade bracelet. Yun Shishir and Yun Yeqing walked over. Yun Yeqing stretched out his trembling hand and sorted out the items. He immediately took a deep breath of cold air. His eyes filled with heartache. Sir? It's my wife, Yun Yeqing kept mumbling. He nodded and shook his head. Li Qin's sudden death made him feel a little lost and sad. How could such a good person be gone just like that? He really could not figure this out. The police officer shook his head and said, the autopsy report is not out yet, so we can't come to a conclusion, but one thing is for sure, she was murdered. Murdered? Yun Yeqing turned pale with fright, somewhat in disbelief. She didn't have any feuds with anyone. Even if she did, it would be a conflict between neighbors. How could she be murdered? Her body was even dumped in the sea. I really can't figure it out. The police officer kept quiet and observed him silently. As Li Qin's husband, Yun Yeqing was also a big suspect in her bizarre death. Therefore, as a suspect, the police officer began to observe him silently from the moment he spoke. Yun Yeqing did not notice the police officer's careful scrutiny and suddenly made a request. Can I take a look at her? The police officer replied, the body is in the autopsy room. It's not convenient for you to take a look at it now. But because the autopsy is still in progress and the body is highly decomposed. Are you sure you want to take a look? Yun Yeqing sighed. No matter what, we have to take one last look at the person who's gone. Yun Shishir also said, Officer, sorry to trouble you. My father wants to take one last look. The police officer nodded. On the way to the autopsy room, the police officer suddenly asked, Your name is Yun Shishir, right? Yun Shishir was surprised and asked, How do you know my name? First, during the investigation, we will be able to find out the details of your identity. Secondly, the green apple is very popular and has a good reputation. I watched it with my girlfriend a few days ago. Your performance was outstanding. My girlfriend was affected by the movie and cried her eyes out. I don't know how to comfort her. In this tense environment, he said something that was not related to the case to lighten his mood. This way, they could better observe the suspect. As a family member, Xianxia was also listed as one of the suspects. Even though the police officer knew that as a celebrity and a public figure, he wouldn't ruin his future with such a thing. Chapter 1891. Xianxia, on the other hand, could not calm herself down. She was not in the mood to exchange pleasantries with her and just brushed her off with a few perfunctory words. When they reached the autopsy room, the police officer took out his key and opened the door. The moment Yun Yeqing and Xianxia stepped in, they smelled an extremely pungent smell of rotting corpses. There were a few tables in the autopsy room. On one of the tables was a corpse, but it did not look human at all. The corpse was highly decomposed. Moreover, after being soaked in seawater for a long time and being corroded, it looked like a giant. It was swollen beyond recognition, and its hair seemed to have fallen off. Its face had become extremely hideous. This was not considered disgusting. The most disgusting thing was that after being eaten by a school of fish, the flesh and blood had been separated, and the body was riddled with holes. A large portion of one of its arms had been cut off, and its legs were extremely twisted and crooked. The corpse's clothes were all removed. Because of the autopsy, the chest and stomach had been cut open, and the head had been cut open for samples to be tested. The decomposition was too severe. The smell of rotting corpses was different from that of ordinary creatures. This kind of stench was rather disgusting and nauseating. Amidst the extreme rancidity, there was also a hint of sourness. Xianxia held her breath, but she still could not resist the pungent smell. She stood hesitantly at the door. Even though she was wearing a thick mask, she could not resist the smell. She did not know if she would vomit in front of the police officer and Yun Yeqing if she took a few more steps forward. The police officer kindly reminded her from the side, "If you find the smell very pungent, you can stay away." "Is the autopsy ongoing?" Yun Yeqing asked while enduring the pungent smell. The police officer nodded. "The autopsy is ongoing, but please understand that the condition of the corpse is too. The few experienced forensic doctors we hired can't stand to face the corpse for a long time. Therefore, the autopsy process is very long and has been ongoing for more than half a month." Yun Yeqing frowned. Indeed, one could imagine how serious the autopsy scene was. Yun Yeqing calmed down for a moment and walked toward the autopsy table. Just as he took a few steps forward, he came in contact with the pungent smell of rotting flesh. Unable to bear it any longer, he turned around abruptly and felt a strong wave of nausea. "Mr. Yun, don't force yourself. This scene is really not something an ordinary person can bear." Yun Yeqing waved his hand and walked to the side of the autopsy table. He lowered his head to look at the corpse and its ugly and hideous face. His heart ached and tears fell from his eyes at once. It's too tragic. He had thought of countless outcomes, but he had never thought that it would be like this. No matter how unbearable Li Qin was, she was still his wife. They had been together for so many years, but one day, she appeared in such a pathetic state in front of him. "Li Qin, who did this to you?" Xianxia immediately went up to support him and consoled him. "Dad, don't be sad. She's already gone. How can it be gone just like that? And to die. Of all the things she shouldn't have done, she shouldn't have died such a miserable death." Tears streamed down Yun Yeqing's face. Chapter 1892. Yun Yeqing quickly agreed. Okay. When they reached the interrogation room, the police officer invited the couple in. After taking the documents, he sat down opposite them. Yun Yeqing looked a little uneasy and asked, "I'd like to ask, your question can be put aside for now. I have to go through the process first." Yun Yeqing nodded in surprise. "Your wife is called Li Qin. She's 49 years old this year, right?" Yun Yeqing nodded. "Yes." If she's still alive, she'll be celebrating her 50th birthday soon. May I ask if your wife has any grudges with anyone before this? Yun Yecheng replied, I don't think so. She rarely has any deep grudges with others. Although her character isn't good and she often quarrels with others, I've never heard of her having any deep grudges with anyone. How's your relationship with your neighbors? Yun Yecheng thought for a while. Not really. She's quite sharp-tongued and often quarrels with her neighbors. She's not on good terms with them. Didn't she do anything suspicious before she went missing? Yun Yecheng shook his head. If that's the case, may I ask? The police officer paused for a moment before probing, how's your relationship as husband and wife? Yun Yecheng sighed and answered truthfully, our relationship isn't very good, and we often quarrel with each other. She's a very crafty and unreasonable person. Plus, she's probably going through menopause. So, we're always arguing about trivial things. Did you get physical when you quarreled? Yun Yecheng smiled bitterly. She'll get physical when she's anxious, but I've never hit her. The police officer recorded this on the document and asked anxiously, in that case, your relationship as husband and wife is very bad. You can say that. The police officer asked again, where was the last time you saw her? And when? Yun Yecheng replied, I can't remember the time, but the last time I saw her was in the hospital with my daughter. Your daughter? Yes. At that time, my daughter was in the hospital. Something happened to my daughter and her face was disfigured. She wanted me to pay for her daughter's treatment. But at that time, I really didn't have any money, so because of this, we had a big fight and divorced. Later, when I returned to the hospital, the mother and daughter were gone. Mother and daughter? A sharp glint flashed in the police officer's eyes. My daughter, Yuna, is also missing. We understand the situation. Your daughter and wife went missing at the same time. Yun Yecheng replied agitatedly, that's what I wanted to ask earlier. My daughter is missing too. But now, I don't even know where my daughter is, nor do I know what's going on. He was afraid that Yun Na had also met with misfortune. This time, Li Qin's body was salvaged from the sea, but there was still no news about Yun Na, who he cared about the most. The police officer asked a sharp question. Since the person has been missing for so long, why didn't you call the police immediately? Yun Yecheng was stunned. The police officer questioned him suspiciously. Logically speaking, when your wife and daughter go missing as a husband and father, you should be very anxious. Chapter 1893. Yun Yecheng shook his head and sighed again. At that time, I had a huge argument with her and it escalated to the point of a divorce. I had to leave the hospital because of something. When I came back, both mother and daughter were gone. I thought that she had left home because she was disheartened by the marriage, so I really didn't think of this possibility. If I had known, I would have called the police. Who would have thought that she would meet with an accident? The police officer nodded. After understanding the situation, he asked Yun Shishir a few more questions. After taking the statement and taking their fingerprints, Yun Shishir and Yun Yecheng left the interrogation room. Mu Yaja was outside the door, talking to Yu on the phone. Just as Yun Shishir walked out, Mu Yaja ended the call. How's the identification of the body? He asked. Yun Shishir shook her head with a grave expression. It's her. She was already very indifferent to Li Qin. To put it bluntly, she really did not feel much when she saw Li Qin's body, but she was still a little dazed. The impact of seeing a person who was originally alive appear in such a hideous state in front of her was indescribable. Hence, this was the only thing she felt. However, Yun Yecheng was different. After all, they had been husband and wife for decades. Being separated by life and death was still an indescribable pain. Yun Yecheng was in a daze from the blow. His mind was still a little muddled as Yun Shishir helped him to the bench. The old chief walked out and reported to Mu Yaja. Then he asked them to go home first, saying that he would inform them once there was any progress in the case. Yun Yecheng asked, can we take the body back? She's already gone and we want a proper burial. The old chief shook his head and said, I'm afraid not. Because it's involved in a murder case, I'm afraid we can't bury her before the autopsy report is done. As the case is being investigated, we need to investigate it at any time. Yun Yecheng's eyes were indescribably cold. All right, then I'll wait for your news. When Yu received a call from Mu Yaja, he found out that a body suspected to be Li Qin's. He frowned and hung up the phone. He sat on the sofa, unable to calm down. He's dead? How did he die? Little Munchkin had completely forgotten that he had something to do with Li Qin's death. However, he had forgotten that Li Qin's death was his doing. It was only natural that he did not remember. Because at that time, when he gave that order, his entire mental state appeared to be sick, almost as if he had gone mad. His purest personality had long disappeared, leaving only coldness. Yu himself did not know that his personality was very divided. In front of Yun Shirshir, she was pure, kind, gentle, and beautiful. But when she turned around, she was cold and cruel. This was not because she was good at acting. Instead, it was a kind of personality distortion, dual personality. This was inseparable from his complicated childhood. He had been living in a dark world since he was a child. In addition, he was unwell and his family environment was terrible. On one side, he had Yun Shirshir's meticulous care and care. She was gentle and meticulous. On the other side, Li Qin and Yun Na were viciously torturing and abusing them. It was inhumane torture and oppression. At the same time, in order to protect Yun Shirshir, the kind-hearted Yu silently endured a lot. No matter how much he was wronged, he only cared about himself and endured it without saying a word. Chapter 1894. His personality was split into two extremes. On one hand, he was as dark as a devil. On the other hand, he was as pure as an angel. Therefore, once his personality split and turned dark, his methods were cruel and ruthless. It was not something a 7-year-old child should have. However, after he returned to normal, it was hard for him to remember what he had done. Therefore, Yu had forgotten what he had done to Li Qin and Yun Na. Xiao Yichen saw that he was frowning and felt uneasy. You don't look too good. What did Daddy say? He said that something happened, so he and Mommy might be a little late. He asked us to wait for him patiently. Xiao Yichen was nervous. What happened? Yu comforted him and said calmly, "Don't worry, you idiot. Daddy and Mommy are fine." However, Grandpa received a call from the police station today. They asked him to go to the police station to identify the body. Little Yichen was stunned when he heard this. A corpse? Yes. Whose body is it? Yu smiled coldly. When he mentioned Li Qin, his face was incomparably cold. He said casually, "Grandpa has a wife whom he has been married to for decades. Her name is Li Qin. She is Mommy's adoptive mother. According to seniority, I should call her Grandma. However, she is a bad person. She often bullies Mommy, so I don't want to call her Grandma." Pausing for a moment, he said slowly, "Some time ago, she and her daughter both disappeared without a trace. Less than a month ago, a fisherman fished up a body from the sea. It matched the woman's characteristics, so he asked Grandpa to identify it. Mommy is also with Grandpa. I'm afraid they are still cooperating with the police to record their statements." Xiao Yichen frowned and was a little speechless. They disappeared without a trace. How did they get fished up from the sea? It doesn't look like suicide. It looks more like a premeditated murder. What do you mean? Intuition. Xiao Yichen smiled. During his years in the special training camp, investigation was one of the most important subjects. Therefore, his consciousness and intuition were especially sharp. Yu was stunned. Xiao Yichen placed his hands behind his back and smiled at him. Then, he slowly said, "Apart from my intuition, if I were to calm down and analyze the situation, I wouldn't have gone through so much trouble to jump into the sea. Think about it. The capital's coastal theme is the estuary where the Longping River flows into the East China Sea. If it was suicide, then she would have to take a boat to the East China Sea to complete the condition of suicide. You have to know that there are only a few ports in the capital. The ports are tightly sealed, so I suspect that it was murder. I suspect foul play." Xiao Yichen's words instantly disrupted Yu's train of thought. It was as if many fragmented fragments had been squeezed into his mind. There were the sounds of women begging for mercy, crying and wailing, accompanied by thoughts that were surging like waves, rising and falling. His mind quickly fell into chaos. He fell onto the sofa in a daze and held his aching forehead. He fell into an inexplicable state of shock and uneasiness. Fragments of memories flashed before his eyes like a merry-go-round. Chapter 1895. Go ahead and cry. Your mommy isn't home now. Let's see who's going to help you. Let's see who's going to protect you. Isn't it too easy to just throw her into the pond? Chop them up and feed them to the sharks. Their deaths aren't worth pitying. I'll give you the money. You deal with the people. Do you understand? Agent Lee, give him the money. You, don't be blinded by hatred. It was as if a fountain had instantly gushed out from the depths of his memories. It was the scene of Yun Na crying as she knelt before him and ceaselessly begged for mercy. You, it's Auntie's fault. It's Auntie's fault. Auntie was blind in the past. It's Auntie's fault. Auntie swears that I won't bully you anymore. And I won't bully your mommy anymore. You, do you really want to kill us? I know that you're just scaring us. We were wrong. At the very least, for the sake of your grandfather, please let us live. Do you know? You're hiring someone to kill us. It's illegal. It's intolerable. Boo-hoo you. I don't want to die. I beg you spare me. Her sharp and piercing cries kept ringing in his ears, pounding on his eardrums. Yu clenched his fists tightly and sat on the sofa. His entire body was unbelievably stiff. Xiao Yichen saw that he was in a terrible state and couldn't help but touch his hand. When his fingertips touched it, he suddenly realized that he was covered in cold sweat. Yu? Xiao Yichen called his name, but the little guy didn't react immediately. Yu, what's wrong? Yu suddenly came back to his senses. His eyes widened as he looked at Xiao Yichen's face in shock. What's wrong? Why do you look so pale? When Yu came to her senses, she realized that her limbs were cold and her breathing was rapid. Her back, in particular, was drenched in cold sweat. I killed someone. He suddenly gripped his arm tightly, his brows furrowed. The memories of breaking through the seal of dust repeatedly stimulated him, reminding him that he had once given a very cruel order. Did you know? You're hiring a hitman. It was against the law. This was intolerable. Yu stood up abruptly from the sofa. The sudden movement startled little Yichen, who was a little restless, and he quickly got up from the sofa as well. What did you just say? Xiao Yichen was a little confused. You said, you killed someone? I need to go out for something. As she spoke, Yu took out her phone and dialed Li Hanlin's number. Agent Li, come and pick me up. Yes, President Yun. Yu walked to the entryway, took a jacket, put it on, and was about to leave. Mu Yichen hurriedly chased after her. Yu, where are you going? Yu turned around and reminded her, be good and stay at home. If Daddy and Mommy ask about me when they come back, cover for me. After she finished speaking, she slammed the door shut, leaving Xiao Yichen standing there in a daze. Xiao Yichen was dumbfounded. Then she hugged her arms angrily and said angrily, What the hell? You left me alone at home and went out to fool around by yourself for no reason at all. I hate you the most. Chapter 1896. However, out of consideration for Yun Shishir's feelings, he did not reveal too much of his heartache. In the past, when the Yun family was still considered to be prosperous and respectable, the couple was very loving and respectful to each other. Perhaps because they did not have to worry about food and clothing, Li Qin was very obedient to Yun Yeqing. Therefore, even when Yun Yeqing wanted to adopt Yun Shishir, Li Qin did not stubbornly object. After a few arguments, she agreed to it. However, she was not her biological child after all. Moreover, her original intention was to adopt a boy. Hence, her attitude toward Yun Shishir was very bad. Later, when the Yun family went bankrupt, Li Qin thought that she would have to live a life of hardship with Yun Yeqing after a few years of glory and wealth. There was a saying that went, poor couples have 100 sorrows. This saying was not wrong at all. When they were rich, they could easily buy a branded coat that cost tens of thousands. When they were poor, daily necessities like rice, oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, and tea became luxuries. After the bankruptcy, the family was at their wits' end. Li Qin was used to living a life of luxury. Now that the family was poor, she had to worry about trivial matters. Naturally, her temper became worse. The couple's relationship then deteriorated. Now, things were still the same, but the people were different. Yun Yeqing kept his head down and did not say a word, but how could Yun Shishir not know what he was worried about? Dad, don't think too much. Even if she's gone, don't let your imagination run wild. Sigh, I'm just worried. I know you're worried about Yun Na's whereabouts. Yun Shishir frowned and covered the back of his hand. Don't worry, I'll definitely find Yun Na. Her mother is gone, and we don't know where she went. Could she have met with an accident, too? That police officer just said that Li Qin was killed by someone, so where is Yun Na now? How can I be at ease now that we don't know whether she's dead or alive? Yun Shishir's expression was grave. She was actually thinking that since Li Qin's body had been found, it was really hard to say whether Yun Na was dead or alive. She had a feeling that Yun Na had also met with an accident. Hence, she did not know how to comfort him when he let his imagination run wild. She could only tell him not to think too much. When they reached home, Yun Shishir realized that little Munchkin was gone. Xiao Yichen was sitting alone in the living room, watching television with his head propped up. Seeing that they had finally returned, she ran over and called out sweetly, "Daddy, Mommy, Grandpa." Where is Yu Yu? Yun Shishir looked around but did not see Yu Yu. Xiao Yichen scratched his head and replied slowly, He could not help but frown as he blamed Yu Yu in his heart. This guy had left him here alone and left him with such a huge mess. How was he supposed to respond? Mu Yaja frowned. Where did that kid go? He seems to have been taken away by someone just now. By whom? I think it was Agent Li. Agent Li? Yun Shishir was obviously unfamiliar with this title. Mu Yaja reacted at once. Agent Li should be the principal of his former kindergarten. Yun Shishir nodded. She had met Yu Yu once when he was in the hospital. That principal seemed to treat Yu Yu as his own. She calmed down and gave Yu Yu a call. The call was quickly connected. Chapter 1897. Yu Yu replied, Mommy, I'm sorry. The principal said that he wants to treat me to dessert, so he won't do it again. It's already so late. Mommy will be worried. Yu Yu coaxed her with a cheeky smile. Mommy, I'm not a child. Don't worry. After I finish the dessert, the principal will send me home safely. Yun Shishir's lips twitched violently. She fell silent. A 7-year-old child said to her, I'm not a child. No matter how she heard it, it sounded strange. Okay, don't play tricks with me. If you don't want Mommy to worry, remember to come home early. Don't be playful. You have to be polite outside. I know. Mommy, don't worry. After hanging up the phone, Yun Shishir carried Xiao Yichen and asked gently, Baby, are you hungry? Mommy is late. As compensation, what do you want to eat? Mommy will make it for you. Xiao Yichen shuddered when he heard this. He said softly, Mommy, if you really want to make it up to me, you should take me out for a meal. Yun Shishir's fragile heart received a heavy blow. Was her culinary skills that bad? She compromised. Then what do you want to eat? Mommy will take you out to eat. I don't mind. Mommy, why don't you ask for Grandpa's opinion? Xiao Yichen will eat whatever Grandpa wants to eat. The little guy's thoughtfulness made Yun Yeqing smile knowingly. The gloominess that had accumulated in his heart dissipated a lot. He took Xiao Yichen from Yun Shishir's arms and could not help teasing him. Xiao Yichen is so sensible. If Grandpa eats cornbread, will Xiao Yichen eat it too? Of course. Whatever Grandpa wants to eat, Xiao Yichen will treat him. Xiao Yichen patted his waist bag and giggled. Xiao Yichen has a lot of money on him. Hee. Yun Yeqing, on the other hand, was amused by his son's words. He caressed the boy's little head lovingly and could not bear to part with him. The atmosphere was joyous and harmonious. Yu Yu sat in the front passenger seat and fiddled with the child safety seat in disgust. She said mercilessly, Don't install this thing in the future. It's uncomfortable. Li Hanlin fell silent. Director Yun, as a child's seat is a must. Otherwise, if the traffic police stop me, I will be criticized and educated. Yu looked at the sky. Li Hanlin regained his composure and asked, Director Yun, what can I do for you this time? Yu pondered for a moment and said slowly, Today, the police summoned my grandfather and mommy to the police station. They said that there is a corpse that needs to be identified. Hearing this, Li Hanlin was very sharp. He suddenly realized something, and his face suddenly darkened. Yu turned to look at him and said, Help me contact the police. I want to see the autopsy report. Which police station is it? Yu shook his head. He did not know which police station it was. Since it was salvaged from the sea, the East Harbor branch should have a file on it. Don't alert the enemy. I have some connections in the police station. It shouldn't be difficult to get a copy of the autopsy report. As Li Hanlin spoke, he noticed that Yu's face was shockingly pale. His gaze fell on his hands on his knees. Even his fingertips were trembling. It was obvious that he was extremely uneasy. Director Yun, what's wrong? Li Hanlin asked with concern and heartache. Agent Li, I'm scared. Chapter 1898. Yu's shoulders curled up slightly. I think there's something dirty on my hands. I'm scared. I'm scared that if Mommy finds out about this, she'll hate me and be scared of me. He knew very well that he had only given the order and that he did not kill Li Qin and Yun Na with his own hands. However, Li Qin and Yun Na's deaths were caused by him. He was not afraid of killing. What he was afraid of was that once his hands were stained with sin, he would never be able to wash them clean. What he was afraid of was that he would become a sinful person, a person that his mommy feared and was disappointed in. Back then, the reason why he wanted to kill Yun Na and Li Qin was because he found out from Li Dongqiang that Yun Na had secretly framed his mommy. He was so angry that he wanted to send those two women who had committed the most heinous crimes to hell. However, when he came back to his senses and calmed down, he realized that he had been blinded by hatred at that time and had lost his rationality. He did not regret what he had done. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, only by becoming stronger could he protect the people he loved. However, he was afraid that his mommy would hate him because of this. What would happen if his mommy found out? Paper could not wrap fire. He did not dare to imagine how disappointed and cold his mommy would be if she found out that he was the culprit behind this matter. In his mommy's world, she was so innocent and yearned for an ordinary and peaceful life. However, if she found out that her most beloved and obedient son had his hands stained with blood, Yu was so shocked that he took a deep breath. Li Hanlin's heart ached as he held his hand tightly. President Yun, don't worry. I'll take care of this matter for you. He comforted him again and again, but Yu still could not help but stiffen. His shoulders, especially, could not stop trembling. It was obvious that he was afraid from the bottom of his heart. Li Hanlin made a phone call on the way back. Then, he drove Yu back to Liji Holdings headquarters. In the office, he poured Yu a glass of Coke. Yu suddenly looked up and held his arm tightly. Agent Li. Li Hanlin raised his eyebrows patiently and looked at him with a gentle smile. Please tell me. Have you killed anyone before? Li Hanlin frowned and fell silent. Yu's bright and deep eyes looked at him quietly. His eyes were filled with complicated emotions, helplessness, and curiosity. At this moment, Yu had lost his usual composure and calmness. He looked at his father helplessly, like an innocent and naive child who had done something wrong. He felt extremely guilty. Li Hanlin smiled and shook his head. I've never killed anyone. Yu's heart skipped a beat, and she felt even more uneasy. He suddenly asked in a low voice, Let me ask you, is killing someone an unforgivable evil? Li Hanlin blinked his eyes and said bluntly, Director Yun, according to the logic of ordinary people, no one has such supreme power, much less the right to take away anyone's life. Yu fell silent. There's nothing wrong with that matter. You're the one at fault. What do you mean? Li Qin and Yun Na are greedy and insatiable. They hurt your family. To you, this is an unforgivable crime. They ended up like this because you're stronger than them. There's nothing wrong with a person being strong. Chapter 1899. Li Hanlin continued to explain, This is a world where the strong prey on the weak. The so-called laws are just rules set by humans standing at the top of the food chain. But isn't this also the fundamental meaning of the law of the jungle? Big fish eat small fish eat shrimps, shrimps eat mud, and humans eat fish. Deer eat grass, wolves eat deer, lions eat wolves, and humans hunt and kill lions. This is unfair to begin with. But in this world, there is no creature stronger than humans, so humans set the rules of the game, and there is no reproach. This is the law. Therefore, the law of the jungle, Huron's justice. There are many unimaginable darkness in this world. Either you don't touch it, or you become the strong. Li Hanlin sighed and gently hugged his shoulder. Mr. Yun, your mistake is that you are still too young. At such a young age, you should have had a carefree childhood, but you stepped into a world that ordinary people can't imagine. Yu Yu's world was already different from Yun Shishir's. He stepped into an extremely dark world, and it was this dark world that set the supreme rules of the game. He was worth hundreds of millions and sat on an inexhaustible wealth. The toy drawings he designed could be used in missile development. Once the Sky Eye project he participated in was successful, the entire Sky Network would be blocked. The Hurricane Group behind him made a living from war. The smoke and war in this world were extremely cruel. But as the ruler, the Hurricane Group had already controlled the rules of life and death. For the time being, not to mention the arms transactions between the Hurricane Group and the governments and royal families of various countries, the arms sales to war-torn areas alone were enough to kill thousands of people overnight. But was this a sin? It was just a kind of capital for the strong. The most evil thing in the world was the human heart. Yu took a sip of cola and bit the straw. He understood what Li Hanlin wanted to say. Li Hanlin asked him, Mr. Yun, I just want to ask, will you regret it? Regret? From the moment you joined the Hurricane Group for a few days, the sin on your hands can no longer be washed away. Do you regret it? Li Hanlin asked gently. On the one hand, he felt sorry for him. He was just a child, a 7-year-old child. There was no need for him to come into contact with this cruel world so early. The Gong family was famous for their fighting prowess. As the leader of the World War, the Hurricane Group was not to be underestimated. Yu Yu smiled and lifted his head. The confusion and uneasiness in his heart were swept away. I have no regrets. Why? Because that's the only way I can become a powerhouse. Even if my hands are stained with sin, I will protect Mommy and not let her come to any harm. He had had enough of cowardice, enough of being weak, enough of being bullied. She didn't want to recall the dark bits and pieces of her childhood. He would rather be stained with that sin and become the strongest person in the world. Only then would he be able to protect his mother tightly in his arms. When he was strong, his mommy wouldn't be bullied anymore. Only when he was strong could he protect the people he wanted to protect. Li Hanlin smiled knowingly and patted his head. If I had a son as strong as you, I would wake up laughing even in my dreams. If I had such a disappointing father like you, I would wake up crying in my dreams. Li Hanlin was deeply affected. Chapter 1900. Li Hanlin clutched his wounded chest and complained tearfully, I'm so sad. I treated you like my own son and loved you like you were my own. But what about you? Not only did you deduct my bonus, but you also shot me down. It's so unfair. Yu said coldly, Agent Li, you must always remember that this is a world where the strong prey on the weak. As your superior, it's my right to deduct your bonus. If you're so capable, why don't you deduct my bonus too? Li Hanlin suddenly fell silent and stared at him as if he wanted to say something. After staring at each other for a long time, the two of them smiled at each other and bumped fists tacitly. In fact, even though he was sharp-tongued, Yu still respected the man from the bottom of his heart. In terms of status, Yun Hanlin was his superior. However, in terms of seniority, he should call him uncle. Li Hanlin had been by his side for a long time and could be considered loyal and devoted. He would not shirk his responsibility even if it meant going through hell. Director Yun, what do you plan to do next? Yu closed his eyes slightly and said in a low voice, suppress this matter as soon as possible. At the same time, send someone to see if you can find Yun Na's whereabouts. Just as he finished speaking, the doorbell rang. Li Hanlin walked over and opened the door. He saw a man in uniform standing outside the door and smiling at him. "Hello, Director Li. I've prepared a copy of the information you requested. Please take a look." As he spoke, the man handed a document to him. Li Hanlin took the document and asked, "Is the autopsy report out yet?" The man shook his head and replied meticulously, "Not yet. The corpse is highly decomposed. Even an experienced forensic doctor can't work for a long time, so the autopsy is going very slowly." "All right, you can go back first. Don't mention this to anyone." "Yes." Li Hanlin closed the door and handed the document to Yu. Yu opened the document expressionlessly. He took out a thick stack of documents and flipped through them page by page. He looked at it very seriously, going through everything in detail, no matter how big or small. As expected, Li Qin's identity was confirmed through the preliminary DNA comparison. It seemed that the corpse was indeed Li Qin. "I remember that I asked Li Dongqiang to clean up his hands and feet." Yu sneered, his eyes cold. Li Hanlin fell silent. He suddenly said, "I'm guessing that he must have wanted to drown them in the sea. Generally speaking, once a corpse is drowned in the sea, it will decompose completely within a few months. Even if it's not completely decomposed, the school of fish will devour the corpse until there's nothing left." Li Dongqiang is not a kind person. He is ruthless and merciless. Li Hanlin thought to himself, "No matter how ruthless I am not as ruthless as you." However, he didn't dare to say this out loud. Li Hanlin said casually, "Which one of the gangsters on East Street hasn't killed anyone before? Their days were spent licking blood from the edge of a blade. These people have no principles. They do things as long as they're paid. As for their efficiency, they can't be compared to professional killers." Even if Li Qin's corpse has been found, what about Yun Na's whereabouts? Yu raised his doubts. Chapter 1901. Yu disagreed. "Since Li Qin has been found out, we still have to find Yun Na's whereabouts to play it safe. If she's alive, I want to see her. If she's dead, I want to see her corpse. If there's an accident, it'll be a disaster if we keep her alive." Li Hanlin nodded in agreement, but said hesitantly, "The East China Sea is so big. Finding a person is like finding a needle in a haystack. I can only do my best." Yu put the file on the table and pursed his lips. Indeed, finding a corpse in the sea was like finding a needle in a haystack. He pondered for a moment and said, "Send someone to deal with the fishermen at the East Port. They go out frequently. If they find anything, suppress the news before calling the police." Li Hanlin nodded. So far, this was probably the only way to deal with the aftermath. Yu's knuckles gently knocked on the table, but there was a thick layer of hostility between his eyebrows. As for Li Dongqiang, his hands and feet are dirty. There's no point in keeping him. "Understood. Leave it to me." East Street, underground gambling den. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. It was the time when there was a boiling cauldron of voices. Li Dongqiang was guarding the den with a cigarette in his mouth. He was like a tiger walking in his territory, patrolling around the den. Suddenly, a servant came over and whispered in his ear, "Boss, someone is looking for you." Li Dongqiang frowned and glanced at him. "Who's looking for you?" The hooligan shook his head blankly and said vaguely, "I don't know. But he said he has a big business to discuss with you." "Big business?" Li Dongqiang's eyes lit up when he heard this. In their line of work, the so-called big business was a code word. It meant that there was a job for him. Therefore, he threw the cigarette butt on the ground and stepped on it. He asked casually, "Where is he?" "He's waiting in the house." Li Dongqiang ordered, "Watch the den for me. I'll be back soon." As he spoke, he walked towards the house. However, when he walked to the door, his nose keenly caught a suspicious scent of blood. People like him who walked on the fringes were very sensitive to the scent of blood. As soon as he walked to the door, he noticed it. Therefore, his hand that was pushing the door open hesitated for a moment, but he still pushed it open. Just as he was about to step in, he didn't know that a strong man in black standing at the door had grabbed his collar and pushed him. Li Dongqiang staggered and fell to the ground. As soon as his hand touched the ground, he felt that the ground was sticky. He raised his head and saw a pair of empty eyes. When he saw the corpse lying on the ground, he was shocked. Foliage *T. Li Dongqiang scolded and heard the door behind him close with a bang. He turned his head warily and saw two men in black guarding the door. One of them walked towards him and grabbed his hair. He raised his head and glanced at him. "You are Li Dongqiang?" "Yes, Sid." "Who the *CK are you?" Li Dongqiang was so scared that he was tongue-tied. When he came to his senses, he saw that there were 7 or 8 corpses lying on the ground in the house. They were all his subordinates. These people were the ones who had been present when he dealt with Lu Jingtian. They had all been silently silenced. "Get rid of him," one of them ordered. Chapter 1902. Would these men in black give him this chance, though? They grabbed his hair, twisted his neck, and threw him to the ground. Then, they took out their pistols and accurately shot him twice between his eyebrows. Blood splattered everywhere. Li Dongqiang's body fell weakly to the ground as his body gradually turned cold. She received a message on her phone. Yu swiped the screen to unlock it. Li Hanlin sent a short message. "The trash has been cleaned up." Yu emotionlessly deleted the message and replied with a smiley face. She then placed the phone under her pillow and went to sleep peacefully. Just as Yun Yecheng was waiting for the results of the autopsy, the police summoned him again 2 days later. He rushed to the station, only to receive a notice that the case had been closed. Case closed. Yun Yecheng was puzzled. What exactly happened in these 2 short days that caused him to receive a notice that the case had been closed? The officer in charge of the criminal investigation received him, listed out all the evidence, and explained everything to him. It was only now that Yun Yecheng realized that his disappointing daughter had actually incurred a huge debt outside. The suspect, Li Dongqiang, has his own territory on East Street and runs an underground gambling den. He's a notorious hoodlum and a frequent visitor to the police station. The officers spread out a few photos for Yun Yecheng to take a look. Only after the officer explained to him did he understand what had happened. Yun Na wasn't smart and wasn't good at studying. She didn't get into high school and randomly enrolled in a vocational school. However, she didn't stay in the vocational school for long before she was infected by the bad atmosphere in the school and had an unclear relationship with some bad guys in society. She had to take a break from school a few times in the middle of her studies. After she graduated, she did not work hard to find a job immediately. Instead, she continued to hang out with those delinquents. Li Dongqiang was one of them. Yun Na often hung out in bars when she was in school. Once, she met Li Dongqiang, who was still a hoodlum at that time, in a bar. Both of them had some drinks and played together. Li Dongqiang liked to play with girls, especially those who were still in school. As for Yun Na, usually he didn't do proper work, but his bright brain was used in this aspect. On weekends, she would often bring a few girls from her class out to play. On the surface, it was just playing, but in reality? After bringing the girl to the bar, the first thing he did was to make her drink a few glasses of alcohol. Of course, the alcohol was not simple. Naturally, there were some things mixed in. These simple-minded girls had yet to enter society and were ignorant of the ways of the world. They were not on guard at all and fell into the trap after 2 glasses of wine. At this segment, the hooligans that Yun Na had befriended tore off their disguises and began to reveal their hidden ambitions. Each of them carried a girl and returned to their room happily to enjoy themselves. Often, in the process of having fun, they would record a **** video. When these girls woke up in the morning, they found themselves lying naked on an unfamiliar bed and were greatly shocked. Chapter 1903. These girls were all people who valued reputation and integrity. How would they dare to go head-to-head with him? Therefore, most of them did not dare to make a fuss about this matter. After the matter was settled, Li Dongqiang would give Yun Na a hefty sum of money, a few hundred to a few thousand yuan per girl. An average beauty would be a few hundred, while a superior one would be a few thousand to tens of thousands. It might not be a lot of money, but to Yun Na, who was just a student at that time, this was an indescribable amount of money. Therefore, with this sum of money, Yun Na squandered a lot. At that time, the Yun family had already gone bankrupt, and the poverty of the family caused Yun Na, who was originally accustomed to the life of a rich young lady, to be completely at a loss. Only by hanging out with Li Dongqiang would she be able to find that long-lost and numbed happiness. Later on, Yun-na mixed more and more with Li Dongqiang. In the past, she would at most play with drinks and karaoke with those people. Gradually, she learned to gamble, take drugs, and skate. There were wins and losses in gambling, winning less and losing more. Later on, because of continuous losses, Yun-na's debt became an irreparable hole. She once asked Yun Yeqing for money, but where did he get the money at that time? He knew that Yun-na would definitely ask for money to fool around and would not give it to her even if he had it. He had saved up a sum of money to prepare for Xirshi's postgraduate entrance exam. Therefore, Yun-na started to ask Yun Xirshe for money. At first, Yun Xirshe was unwilling to give it to her. She had to spend money everywhere to take care of the sick Liu. At that time, she had just entered society and was busy subsidizing the family, helping Yun-na pay off her debts, and taking care of Yu. Life was very tight. However, Yun-na threatened that she had offended some hooligans. If she did not return the money, the hooligans would come looking for her and hurt her family. Yun Xirshe had no choice but to scrape together some money and give it to her. From then on, Yun-na began to ask Yun Xirshe for money frequently. Yun Xirshe could not stand her exorbitant demands and moved the rented house again and again. Later on, Yun-na could no longer fill the huge loophole caused by gambling and drug addiction. Hence, she came up with the idea of Yun Xirshe. She tricked Yun Xirshe into the clubhouse and forced her to drink the drug. She also made an agreement with Li Dongqiang that after the deed was done, not only would her debt be forgiven, but he would also give her another 1 million yuan. Yun-na was ecstatic. However, this matter was exposed by Mu Yaja. If it weren't for him, Yun Xirshe would have been in deep trouble. What happened next? Yun Yeqing had a rough idea of what had happened. Once, when he returned home, he bumped into Yun-na. That time, Li Dongqiang brought people to collect the debt. Yun-na really couldn't pay up, so he took turns with her. Yun Yeqing had heard from Yun Xirshe that Yun-na was addicted to drugs and gambling. He did not believe it at first, but compared to his sister, he was more inclined to believe Yun Xirshe's words. It was just that he was still a little skeptical. It was only now that he truly believed it. It turned out that this daughter of his was a complete scum. She had been fooling around in society since she was in school. That was not all. She actually had designs on Xirshe. Gosh, how could she do such a thing to sell her sister to a few hooligans? Chapter 1904. Yun Yeqing was in disbelief. It was only when the police took out some relevant evidence and let him listen to the relevant testimonies that he fell numbly into the chair with a face full of heartache. It was the father's fault for not teaching her well. What did he do to raise such a shameless daughter? Sitting in front of the police officer, he was extremely anxious and felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. Especially when he heard about Yun-na's crimes, he did not know where to put his face. Li Qin was also aware of this matter, but she did not say it out loud. However, the mother-daughter pair could only blame themselves for being reduced to such a state. If not for Yun-na's insatiable greed and selfishness, she would harm others for her own benefit. What about Li Qin? She was pitifully implicated by this unfilial daughter and died a wrongful death. For a moment, Yun Yeqing did not know what to feel. There was heartache, confusion, and hatred. His hatred for Yun-na's ugliness grew. This case could be considered closed at this point. Li Qin's body had been found, but Yun-na's body was probably still undiscovered. The police officer said to him, "The East China Sea is huge. I'm afraid it's like looking for a needle in a haystack if you want to search for the body thoroughly. Not to mention whether the body has been decomposed or eaten clean by the fishes, just the cost of salvaging it is difficult to estimate. It was a coincidence that we found your wife's body. We can only say that we'll do our best. However, we can't guarantee that we'll be able to find your daughter's body." What about the suspect? Yun Yeqing's voice was hoarse and low. "That murderer who murdered my wife and daughter. When will your department arrest him and bring him to justice?" The police officer replied, "The suspect was killed by his fellow gang members before we sent people to arrest him. He died in a fight with his gang members." Fellow gang members? Yes. The police officer explained that Li Dongqiang and the gang members had a fierce exchange of gunfire. The police officer took out some photos taken at the scene and showed them to him. Li Dongqiang, male, 35 years old. He was attacked by a group of unknown people in an underground gambling house 2 nights ago. When we arrived, the scene was a mess. Blood flowed like a river. There were heavy casualties. No one survived. There's such a thing. Yun Yeqing was even more shocked. Mr. Yun, I can only ask you to restrain your grief. The police officer comforted him with a few words, then got up and left. Yun Yeqing slumped on the stool, unable to regain his senses for a long time. When Yun Shishir was still on set, she received a call from Yun Yeqing. After learning about what had happened, she was in a daze for a long time. She thought that it would take a long time for the case to be closed, but she didn't expect it to be closed so soon. Chapter 1905. Yun Yeqing could not fork out the money at first. In the end, it was Yun Shishir who paid for it. He felt guilty and grateful at the same time. Li Qin was very harsh toward Yun Shishir when she was alive, yet this filial child was willing to let bygones be bygones and clean up the mess for him. He did not feel good about it. Yun Shishir, however, said, "Hate is hate, but she's already dead. There's no need for me to be calculative with someone who's already dead. Dad, cherish the people in front of you. It's fine as long as you're happy." Thank you. I've let you down. He was so regretful that he could not say anything else. Director Yun, it's been settled. Li Hanlin's voice was deep and cryptic over the phone. The meaning behind it was self-evident. Yu nodded and gave a rare compliment. I got it. You've managed to settle it in just 2 days. I have to say that you're quite capable. Li Hanlin was at a loss. He did not know if this little guy was praising or belittling him. As if knowing what the person on the other end was thinking, Yu calmly replied, I'm praising you. Does this guy have a very good mind-reading ability? How can he guess what I'm thinking over the phone from so far away? Agent Li, we've worked together for so long. It's hard to describe our tacit understanding. You know me and I know you. Of course, I know what you're thinking. Yu said lightly, once again guessing what he was thinking. Li Hanlin was completely speechless. Director Yun, yes? You must be the reincarnation of a demon. I feel that you're not a normal creature. There was a long silence on the other end. Just as Li Hanlin was on tenterhooks, Yu's cold voice sounded from the other end. It's almost the new year. It seems that someone doesn't want his year-end bonus. Director Yun, I was just joking with you. Before he could finish his sentence, a cold beeping sound came from the other end. Li Hanlin hugged his phone and felt like crying. Wulan Mountain Public Cemetery. It was sparsely populated. After the winter solstice, this place became unusually bleak. Early in the morning, at the first glimmer of dawn, a thin figure suddenly appeared at the gate. The thin figure was wearing a hooded black sweater. The collar of the sweater was pulled all the way to the neck. A large hat was placed on the top of the head, covering half of the person's face. It was impossible to see the person's appearance clearly. However, judging from her figure, she was a young woman of average height. The woman put her hands in her pockets and slowly walked through the door. The bodyguard stood up and raised his head to look at the newcomer, but a strange feeling arose in his heart. He had seen people sweeping the tombs, but he had never seen them before. It was still early in the morning when the cemetery had just opened, and they were already sweeping the tombs. Therefore, he walked out of the preservation room. Just as he walked over, he wanted to ask. Before he could reach the man, he was frightened by the strange aura that the man emitted and took half a step back. This woman was clearly a living person. Why was she like a ghost? The bodyguard shook his head and decided not to poke his nose into other people's business. He returned to the preservation room to hide from the wind. The woman suddenly walked toward him. Help me check a name. The bodyguard raised his head and saw that the woman had appeared at the window without making a sound. He was shocked. Chapter 1906. The woman's face was covered by a hat, and she wore a thick mask that covered most of her face. Only a pair of eyes that were as dark as a bottomless abyss could be seen. But were those really human eyes? These were not eyes that a living person should have. There was not a trace of life in them. They were like two empty holes that emitted a biting cold air from the depths. What was more frightening was that the area around her eyes was covered with hideous scars, as if she had been scratched by something sharp. Although the wound had healed, it left a permanent scar. This person, what was going on? She wrapped herself up fully, but there were scars on her face. It was very suspicious. She was neither a human nor a ghost. To be honest, after guarding the tomb for so many years, this was the first time he had been frightened by a living person. The security guard patted his chest and did not wait for him to react. "Help me check a name." The woman repeated this sentence eerily, as if she was silently chanting an ancient and terrifying spell. Her voice was low and hoarse, and there was no trace of life in it at all. The security guard's face stiffened for a while, then he took the booklet from the side and asked in a bad mood, "What's the name?" "Li Qin." "Mu Zi Li, is Qin the Qin in piano?" The woman nodded slowly. This name was just added not long ago. It's in the 19th row, 23rd. As soon as he finished speaking, the woman turned around without saying a word and walked towards the tomb. The security guard stared at the woman's back as she left. After a long time, he could not help but spit out a few words. "What a strange person." The woman did not walk far. Her footsteps suddenly stopped, and she slowly turned around. A pair of ghostly eyes looked in his direction. The security guard was shocked into silence. He subconsciously bit his lips and smiled at her as if he was trying to please her. Tomb number 5. 19th row, 23rd row. This was a row of newly built tombstones, green and lush. The woman stopped in front of the tombstone. On the tombstone, there was a black and white photo of Li Qin, and below it were tributes and flowers. The woman slowly knelt on the ground. Her fingertips gently touched the cold photo, and her eyes narrowed slightly. "Nana, live well? You must avenge Mother. Mother hates it. Mama really hates it. I'll definitely make that bitch live a life worse than death. I'll definitely make her live in pain for the rest of her life." The mournful and desperate cries were still ringing in his ears. The woman silently stroked the cold photo over and over again. In the early morning, the frost and dew were heavy, and the photo was covered with a layer of wet marks. She gently wiped the dampness off the photo bit by bit, as if she was caressing it gently. When the woman left, the flowers in front of the tombstone were trampled to pieces. The security guard watched the figure leave and muttered to himself, "More like a ghost than a ghost. He's seriously ill." The night after Xianxia came back from the set, the family of 4 went to a Western restaurant for dinner. Wuxia purposely chose a French restaurant. When Xianxia heard that they were going to eat French food again, he was so happy that he danced with joy. "I love French cuisine the most. Daddy is wise. Daddy is mighty." When Yu heard this, she looked like she was about to vomit. Chapter 1907. Whether it was French cuisine, Chinese cuisine, or Japanese cuisine, he had tried cooking all of them. Especially when it came to French cuisine, he was very good at it. It was not for any other reason but because Mommy especially loved French steak with foie gras. Hence, he learned and specialized in French cuisine for a while. He almost threw up from cooking, but Mommy still had a soft spot for French cuisine. Mommy was a godlike person. It seemed like his stupid mommy really loved French cuisine. The restaurant here has a unique style. Their signature dish is French steak. Wuxia carefully flipped through the menu page by page. As he ordered, he introduced the dishes to her. Xianxia was a little surprised. "How did you know that I love French steak?" Wuxia smiled but did not say anything. He silently glanced at Yu, who was sitting beside her. Yu smiled slightly. "Daddy asked me what Mommy likes to eat the most, so I answered truthfully." As he said this, he said to Wuxia, "Daddy, you don't know this, but Mommy is a top-notch foodie. With my cooking skills, her taste buds are very picky and she's very picky. If the restaurant Daddy recommends doesn't taste good, Mommy will definitely be disappointed." Xianxia smiled and couldn't help but scratch the bridge of his nose. "Oh, no matter how good the chef is, he can't be as good as our Yu. Xianxia quickly flattered, "Yu's cooking is the best. Yu's steak is the best in the world." Seeing through his flattery, Yu coldly retorted. Have you tried the fried steak I've made before? The corners of Mu Yichen's eyes twitched violently. No. Mu Yaja said indifferently, Xiao Yichen, you've grown up. You've hit the nail on the head with your flattery. Yun Shirshir was so amused that she kept laughing. Mu Yichen felt even more uneasy. He suddenly twisted his words and forced logic. What do you mean by flattery? I'm telling the truth. Also, I've tried Yu's steak before. Yun Shirshir and Yu looked at each other blankly. When? Dream. Mu Yichen muttered. Dead silence. The three of them looked at Mu Yichen pitifully. The latter poked his little finger pitifully, looking extremely aggrieved. It's Yu's fault for not cooking for me. You little foodie, what else do you know other than eating? Yu was annoyed at him for being a disappointment and poked his little head. Mu Yichen lowered his little head dejectedly and looked very pitiful. He sighed and complained, I wanted to try Yu's steak, but in the end, I can only keep it as a memento in my dreams. Yun Shirshir laughed. She felt that this guy was too funny. Mu Yaja was silent. Was this guy born to be a comedian? Isn't it just a steak? I'll make it for you when we get back. Yu waved his hand heroically, causing Xiao Yichen to cheer repeatedly. You too, that's enough. Stop fooling around. Didn't mommy teach you to maintain a gentleman's demeanor in public? Yu and Mu Yichen tacitly sat upright and still obedient. Have you washed your hands? Yu and Xiao Yichen shook their heads. Mu Yaja gently rubbed Mu Yichen's black hair and smiled at her. You order first. I'll bring the two guys to wash their hands. Okay. Yun Shirshir suddenly asked, What do you want to eat? Chapter 1908. Mu Yaja got up and walked to the washroom with one hand holding the other child's hand. However, what was slightly interesting was that the two little guys were only waist-high. One was big and the other was small, so there was a very distinct height difference. Mu Yaja's 1.88 meters tall height was eye-catching. However, perhaps because he was too tall, he had to lower his posture a little and bend his knees slightly while holding the two children's hands. Therefore, the man did not look as domineering as before. Instead, he looked more gentle and meticulous as a father. He was a young father, 28 years old, but he was the father of two children. Perhaps because of his lack of experience or because he was used to being swift and decisive, he was even a little helpless when facing the two little guys. However, other than being uneasy, there was the gentleness in his father's nature that could not be hidden. Yun Shirshir's eyes curved as she could not help but touch the diamond ring on her ring finger. Her heart was filled with sweet satisfaction. She lowered her head and browsed through the menu, hesitating as she chose the dishes. Sister Song. Here, I'm here. A woman's voice suddenly sounded from the neighboring seat. Yun Shirshir looked up in confusion and was surprised to meet eyes with a familiar face. Song Enya, who was dressed to the nines with exquisite makeup, walked in with a sachet in her hand. The moment she saw Yun Shirshir, who was sitting in a private room facing her, her gaze changed again and again. Why are you here? Without waiting for Yun Shirshir to react, Song Enya took the lead to question unreasonably. Yun Shirshir fell silent and suddenly had the urge to change restaurants. Song Enya seemed to have an appointment with someone and had arranged to meet here. However, just as she stepped through the door, the two unexpectedly bumped into each other. Song Enya was furious when she saw Yun Shirshir. She had previously heard that Mu Yaja and Yun Shirshir had held a grand engagement ceremony on a private island. At that time, many high-level political figures, political leaders, and presidents of various countries were present. It was especially grand and dignified. He had heard all these from Song Yunshi. Song Yunshi purposely brought up this matter in front of her to provoke her into giving up on the man completely, so that she would no longer harbor any unrealistic thoughts about him. Song Enya did not show much emotion on her face when she heard that, but her heart seemed to be in turmoil. They were actually engaged. She questioned lightly, doesn't the Mu family dislike Yun Shirshir? How could he agree? Song Yunshi said, no one from the Mu family is present. Uncle Mu did it himself without using any of the Mu family's resources. However, what was unexpected was that it was done in such a grand manner. I heard that Uncle Mu racked his brains to create a dreamy beach wedding for that woman. The scene is very romantic and dreamy, just like a fairy tale. Song Yunxi's nonchalant words were like the sharpest icicles, piercing her heart and causing it to bleed. Song Enya was so heartbroken that she could not breathe. She could not take it lying down. Even though she knew very well that she might not be able to win Brother Mu's heart even if she did everything she could not let go calmly. She could not take it lying down. All along, she had never said that she could not get what she wanted. Chapter 1909. What right did Xianxia have to have what she could not have? With this thought in mind, Song Enya felt increasingly unbalanced. Hence, she hated Xianxia to the core. The thought of the man she loved hugging another woman and making a solemn promise to her made her hate Xianxia so much that she wished she could disappear from this world without a trace. Song Yunxi had advised her not to have any wishful thinking about Mu Yaja. This was not the first time she had given her such advice. However, Song Enya did not take it to heart. Hence, at this moment, when Xianxia stood before her, Song Enya trembled all over and clenched her fists tightly. She did not know how much effort it took for her to control herself from rushing forward to strangle her. Xianxia, I didn't expect to meet you here. Song Enya smiled and ignored the greetings from her friends. She took a few steps toward Xianxia and sneered. Are you very smug now? Do you think that you can live happily ever after with Brother Mu? I have to hand it to you, you've really played a big game of chess. First, you racked your brains to get close to Brother Mu and got pregnant with his child through dirty means. In the end, she would secretly hide the child by her side. When the time came, she would naturally be able to rely on her child to enjoy the glory and splendor of wealth. Do you think that you can take root in the Mu family with your lowly status? Don't think that you can rest easy just because you're engaged to Brother Mu. Let me tell you, you don't have the right to step into the Mu family. Xianxia knitted her brows in disgust and waved her hand in disgust. What a strong sour taste. Why are you so jealous of me? Song Enya, you can only be jealous of me. Don't tell me that you want to snatch your Brother Mu from me? Xianxia paused for a moment. She unrestrainedly enjoyed the look on Song Enya's face and smiled faintly. If you want to snatch him from me, you'll have to see if you have the right to do so. You. Song Enya did not expect Xianxia to reply to her with such an aggressive tone. She was so furious that her shoulders heaved up and down violently as her whole body trembled in anger. A slut will always be a slut. I really hope that Brother Mu is also here, so that he can hear your wild ambitions with his own ears. Don't keep calling me Brother Mu. I remember that according to seniority, you should call him uncle. Then, as your aunt, shouldn't you be a little more respectful? She was the mayor's daughter, yet she had such poor upbringing. She kept saying, slut, every day. If word got out, it would be very unpleasant. I heard that you graduated from a prestigious school, so you should be well-mannered. I didn't expect you to behave like an unreasonable shrew. Such merciless mockery made Song Enya lose all face. Unable to control her anger, she lost her rationality and strode up to Xianxia. She glared at her condescendingly and scolded, "You shameless slut." As he spoke, he raised his hand and was about to slap Lin Menya. In the next second, her hand was tightly grasped by a strong hand. Let go. Who is it? Song Enya turned around abruptly and sent a palm strike toward her. Chapter 1910. Before Song Enya could see clearly who the person in front of her was, her face was already burning. It was a powerful slap to the face, but it caused everyone present to be fiercely stunned. Mu Yaja pulled her away. Song Enya lost her balance and staggered, falling onto the dining table and sitting on the floor. Even now, she was still in disbelief as she raised her head. However, when she finally saw who the slap came from, she was so wrong that tears instantly filled her eyes. Brother Mu? He actually slapped her. And in front of everyone. The most embarrassing thing for her was that Mu Yaja had slapped her in front of Xianxia. The pain on her face was not even a millionth of the pain in her heart. At that moment, Song Enya's world turned dark and gloomy. She fell to the ground, and her rather embarrassing appearance caused her to lose all her face. She held her aching cheek and tightly pursed her lips. Her trembling lips were simply unable to form a complete word. This is the first time in his life that Brother Mu has been so angry with me for a lowly woman. Why? Why did he embarrass me in front of so many people, especially Xianxia? Is he defending me? Why? Xianxia wanted to cry but had no tears. Her heart was undoubtedly shattered into pieces and she was almost suffocating. Xianxia was also stunned. She glanced at Wuxia beside her. At this moment, his handsome face was filled with hostility. His eyes, especially, were soul-stirring and sharp. I remember that I reminded you not to touch her. It was just a simple sentence, but it was frightening. Although it was a low voice, it inexplicably made people shudder. Even Xianxia was so frightened by his terrifying aura that she bit her lip nervously and did not dare to breathe loudly. What she was most afraid of was him when he was angry. That pair of eyes stared at her coldly, as if he was looking at a stranger, or as if he was staring at an abominable face. There was obvious disgust in his eyes. Does he hate me? Don't? Xianxia could no longer hold back her tears. Yu and Xianxia also walked over. Their legs were not as long as Wuxia's, so when they rushed over, they happened to hear Wuxia's harsh words. When Yu heard this, he almost clapped his hands and cheered. Daddy is handsome and heroic. This bad woman popped out of nowhere. They had only left for a short while and she was already an eyesore. She didn't know what she had done to Mommy to make Daddy so angry. However, Yi was comforted by the way her daddy defended her mommy. Xianxia also thought to himself, Daddy is so cool. Whoever bullied Mommy, he had to get back at them. Otherwise, others would think that his mommy was easy to bully. Xianxia? Xianxia sneered inwardly. He hated this woman from the very beginning, especially after their encounter in Fairy Tale Valley. He hated the Song sisters for the rest of his life. The Muse and Songs had some dealings with each other, but now, Xianxia pretended not to see the elders of the Song family, which infuriated the Song family. However, his daddy did not say anything, nor did he force him to address those elders. Chapter 1911. Wuxia did not embarrass the Songs on account of the Jiangs. If not for the fact that the Songs were related to the Muse, he did not want to embarrass them. When Xianxia saw that Wuxia had arrived, her heart calmed down and she felt an inexplicable sense of security. She hooked her arm around Wuxia's and snorted. She swept a glance at Xianxia, who was on the ground, with a smug look on her face. It was obvious that she was purposely trying to anger the other and flaunt their love in front of her. There was a saying that went, flaunting love dies quickly. However, when it was necessary, she still had to declare her sovereignty. Xianxia was so angry that her face turned ashen. She looked like she was about to vomit blood. Xianxia's silent humiliation made her feel even more embarrassed. With the help of her friends, she slowly got up from the ground and glared at Xianxia. However, just as she glared at her, Wuxia's cold gaze landed on her face like a knife. Xianxia was sad and embarrassed. She was so angry that she was at a loss for words. She looked at him with tears in her eyes, but just as she was about to speak, Wuxia blocked her with one sentence. I don't want to see you. These 6 words were enough to make Xianxia deeply understand what it felt like to be heartbroken. She bit her lower lip and muttered timidly, Brother Mu, do you want me to send someone to chase you away? Wuxia narrowed his eyes dangerously. She knew his character. He meant what he said. She gritted her teeth and weighed the pros and cons. In the end, she decided to leave with dignity. Before she left, she did not forget to glare fiercely at Xianxia before leaving in a huff. Xianxia muttered, unreasonable. Wuxia turned his head expressionlessly. She could not help but shrink her shoulders, thinking that he was going to reprimand her for something. After all, she had ruthlessly insulted Xianxia just now. She did not know how much of it he had taken in. Unexpectedly, he smiled helplessly and said, Little thing, I didn't expect that you would finally do well for once. He could hear her eloquent and aggressive words from afar. Wuxia felt very gratified. Xianxia blushed. What do you mean? What do you mean you've finally done well for once? Yu sighed and explained, "Stupid mommy, daddy means that you finally worked hard for once and didn't let anyone bully you." Yun Shishir, Xiao Yichen pursed his lips and said, "Where did this bad woman come from? How annoying. Isn't it enough for you to harm me? You even came to harm my mommy." Yun Shishir was surprised. "When did she harm you? Let's not talk about the past. Anyway, even I can see that neither of the Song sisters is good." Yu said coldly from the side, "Muichen, can't you tell? That woman is obviously trying to snatch daddy from mommy." Snatch daddy? When Xiao Yichen heard this, he immediately hugged Mu Yaja tightly and said indignantly, "No way. If she wants to snatch daddy, she'll have to get past me first." Yu said softly, "There are so many women who want to snatch daddy from mommy, but mommy is such a blockhead that she doesn't have any sense of danger." Xiao Yichen laughed when he heard this. "That's because mommy has a lot of suitors too." Yun Shishir suddenly fell silent. Mu Yaja held his forehead, unable to listen to this anymore. "You two little fools, sit down obediently." Chapter 1912. Mu Yaja asked, "Did she touch you?" Yun Shishir shook her head. "No, she didn't. I was about to hit her, but you arrived just in time." "If I didn't arrive in time, would you have let her hit you without retaliating?" Mu Yaja wondered if Song Enya would have been able to bully her if he had not arrived in time. "I was just about to retaliate when you arrived to protect me," Yun Shishir said in all seriousness, not forgetting to make fun of him. "Hubby, I didn't expect you to be so nimble. Could it be that you sensed that I was about to be bullied, so you rushed over on your flaming wheels to save me?" As soon as she finished speaking, Yu and Xiao Yichen could not help but burst into laughter. Mu Yaja's face darkened. "What are you thinking about in that little head of yours all day long?" Despite his disdain, however, the corners of his mouth were still smiling. The way Yun Shishir addressed him as hubby earlier had warmed his heart. This little lass was really too adorable. This was especially so when she held his arm, silently declaring her sovereignty over his niece. He actually felt very warm and even a great sense of accomplishment. This gave him a greater sense of accomplishment than if he had successfully negotiated a sky-high contract. "Hubby, tell me, why is there a woman who doesn't know what's good for her? What if she comes to harass me again?" Mu Yaja replied nonchalantly, "Hit her back." "Hit her back?" Yun Shishir fell silent. What a simple and crude answer. Yun Shishir mumbled, "She's the mayor's daughter. Her family is full of influential people. If you ask me to hit her back, isn't it obvious that you want me to create trouble for you?" Mu Yaja replied in all seriousness, "Madam, you must always remember your identity. She's the mayor's daughter, and you're the young mistress of the Mu group. Your status is higher than hers. Even if you bully her when the time comes and things get out of hand, the one who comes running to apologize is her, not you. Do you understand?" Mu Yaja said indifferently. "So, my husband is so powerful?" Yun Shishir pretended to be surprised and looked at him. The expression on her face was playful and cute. Mu Yaja cast a sidelong glance at her. "You just found out?" Yun Shishir stared blankly for a moment. Then she smiled. However, there was a hint of bitterness in her eyes. She faintly said, "However, what young Matt, the Mu family doesn't approve of me. I really can't afford this title." Mu Ya, on the other hand, furrowed his brows and gripped her hand tightly. "It's enough that I approve of you. I have the final say in the Mu family. Your identity is also up to me to decide. You are my fiancée. In the future, you will be Mu Yaja's only wife. Who dares to say so to the person I've decided on?" His domineering and exclusive style was evident. Yun Shishir stared at him, dumbfounded. For a moment, she did not even know how to respond. "Don't worry. Before the wedding, all your worries will not appear again. Give me some time, and I'll give you an explanation." Mu Yaja's tone was solemn when he said this. Yun Shishir was touched and nodded. After dinner, the family originally planned to go home. However, Xiao Yichen and Yu were full. Hence, they suggested watching a movie to digest their food. Watch a movie? Chapter 1913. As if by magic, Xiao Yichen suddenly took out 4 movie tickets from his wallet. Yun Shishir took a closer look and realized that they were 4 movie tickets for The Green Apple. She fell silent. Xiao Yichen, how many movie tickets did you buy? So many. Didn't I tell Mommy that I would reserve the entire theater for everyone to watch? Xiao Yichen glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. You're so generous. Yun Shishir broke out in a cold sweat. Hence, the family headed to the theater after making up their mind. On the way there, Yun Shishir suddenly felt a little cold. When they left the house, it was still evening and the weather wasn't that cold. However, now that it was night time, the cold wind blew and she shivered. Although Yun Shishir didn't say it explicitly, Mu Yaja could tell that she was a little cold. Hence, he drove to a branded fashion store and brought Yun Shishir inside. When the family of 4 stepped into the store, everyone was stunned and looked in their direction. Oh my God, the man was handsome, the woman was beautiful, and the 2 little guys were even cuter and more charming than mixed-blood children. They were so bright and beautiful that everyone was envious. However, Mu Yaja ignored everyone's envious gazes. He chose, tried on, and swiped his card. His actions were as smooth as flowing water. Just like that, within a few minutes, she had a warm coat on her. After Mu Yaja swiped his card, he looked at her and was satisfied. Then, he held her hand and left the store. Yun Shishir was dumbfounded. Xiao Yichen commented from the side, "Not bad. Daddy has good taste. This coat suits Mommy very well. It looks beautiful and warm on her." Mu Yaja said coldly, "Stop trying to bewitch me." Xiao Yichen was silent. Nobody knew a son better than his father. How did he know that he was trying to bewitch him? Indeed, in fact, he had recently spent most of his private savings on booking a theater and treating people to a movie. He didn't have much money left, so he figured that he could curry favor with his daddy to get some pocket money to spend. "You don't have any more pocket money, right?" Yu mocked her from the side. It was obvious that Xiao Yichen had also noticed that Yun Shishir was a little cold, so he was thinking about buying her a coat. He had also taken a fancy to the coat that his father had taken a fancy to. He wanted to rush to pay the bill, but when he touched his wallet, there were only a few hundred notes left. The problem was that the coat was worth 5 figures. His face was full of resentment. He had wanted to perform well in front of his mommy. Sigh. In the end, he ended up showing off. "I've spent all the pocket money Daddy gave me." Ever since Xiao Yichen was 6 years old, he had been given hundreds of thousands of yuan in pocket money every month. Most of it was invested in his management, and the rest was donated to support his mother's movie box office. The remaining few bills made him feel like he was struggling to make ends meet. Mu Yaja said coldly, "I've already given you this month's pocket money. Since you've used it up, you'll have to wait for next month." Xiao Yichen looked depressed. Yun Shishir asked with concern, "Xiao Yichen, you don't have any more pocket money?" "Yes." Xiao Yichen nodded and looked at her expectantly. As expected, Yun Shishir dug into her own pocket. "Daddy won't give you any, but Mommy will." "Who asked your daddy to be so stingy?" "That's right. Mommy is still the most generous," Xiao Yichen said with a smile. Chapter 1914. The latter glared at him. However, Xiao Yichen knew that he had Yun Shishir to back him up, so he glared back at him. But this kid has grown up. In the past, whenever he glared at him, he would shrink back. Here you go. Remember to save some money." Xiao Yichen turned around and saw Yun Shishir handing him a few hundred yuan notes with a smile. Little Yichen's heart turned cold at once. Yu snickered at the side. Mommy and Daddy were different. Daddy was rich and generous. He gave them each a few 100,000 yuan as pocket money every month. However, Mommy's concept of pocket money was more like that of an ordinary family. How much money could a 7- or 8-year-old spend? A few hundred yuan was already impressive. Looking at Xiao Yichen's disheartened expression, Yu covered her mouth and snickered at his misfortune. The weather in the north was very cold at night. However, it was different from the south. The weather in the south was humid and cold. In the north, the weather at night was thicker so that it was not considered cold. The family of 4 sat in the cinema. Yun Shishir had already watched the movie once, but the 2 little guys had not. Children of 6 or 7 years old had no interest in romance movies. However, because the female lead of the movie was their mommy, the two little guys watched it with great interest. Xianxia, on the other hand, was on tenterhooks. After all, the filming of this movie had caused quite a stir. As expected, Mu Yaja's expression was gloomy throughout the movie. When there were some hugging scenes, his expression became even gloomier, not to mention the intimate kissing scenes. Especially when Yin Xiachuan kissed Yin Dongyu forcefully. Xianxia carefully glanced at Mu Yaja. Her expression was so gloomy that ink was about to drip out of it. How torturous! With a 1,000-year-old iceberg sitting next to him, no matter how thick he wrapped himself, it would be useless. Little Ichen, who was standing at the side, said in a shocking manner, "Yu, don't you think mommy and the male lead are a good match?" As soon as he said this, Mu Yaja's eyes darkened. He couldn't help but reach out and pinch Xiao Yichen's ear, causing him to grimace in pain. "Shut up. Watch your movie and don't talk too much." Being reprimanded for no reason, little Ichen covered his red and painful ears with his hands. He wanted to cry but had no tears. He complained to Yu, "Daddy is so violent. How did I offend him? You want to bully me like this?" "Serves you right." Yu was expressionless and did not sympathize with him at all. "Who asked you to say that mommy is compatible with another man in front of daddy?" Xiao Yichen was speechless. The little guy immediately turned around and said, "Daddy, you're the most handsome. You and mommy are the most compatible." His teasing words made the people sitting around look over. Looking at the adorable little guy, everyone laughed good-naturedly. However, some people couldn't help but notice Xianxia, who was sitting at the side and watching the movie. One of the girls whispered, "Hey, look at the woman behind you. She looks so much like the female lead in the movie." Her boyfriend immediately turned around and stared at Xianxia. He was extremely surprised. "Yes, they look alike." Xiaoxia's heart skipped a beat. "Oh no, I think I've been recognized." Chapter 1915. Yu was stunned for a moment, but Xiaoxia replied calmly, "How is that possible? I'm already a mother of 2. Her unusual calmness confused the girl. Xiaoxia continued, "My colleague said that Xiaoxia and I look a lot alike, so I came over to watch her movie." "There's such a coincidence?" the man asked in surprise. Xiaoxia's calm reply dispelled their suspicions. Thus, they turned around to continue watching the movie. As they watched, they exclaimed, "They really look alike." Xiaoxia tilted her head and glanced at Mu Yaja. She saw him staring at the movie screen. In the dark, his eyes were deep and bright. They were as beautiful as top-grade jade, and she couldn't help but be mesmerized by them. Mu Yaja seemed to sense her peeking at him. He slowly turned his face and glanced at her. Raising his eyebrows, he asked, "What's wrong? You don't like watching this movie, do you?" Xiaoxia muttered. "What do you think?" Mu Yaja asked in amusement. "No man would like his woman to kiss another man. This is acting. It's work." "Not even work." Mu Yaja said sourly, "You even kissed so passionately. Your acting skills are really good." Xiaoxia was confused. She didn't know if his comment was positive or negative. She felt that he didn't seem to like the movie. However, if she thought about it carefully and put herself in his shoes, it was understandable that he didn't like it. After all, he didn't like her to be intimate with other men. If Mu Yaja kissed another woman because of work, she wouldn't be able to tolerate it either. Thus, she made up her mind and said, "Okay, I won't do any kissing scenes in the future." Mu Yaja was speechless. She held his arm and promised in a low voice, "Even if it's for work, I won't kiss another man." "Not bad, you have such awareness." "Very good." Mu Yaja suddenly grabbed her shoulders and leaned in to give her a light peck on the lips. His gaze fell on her tender and supple lips as he said in a deep voice, "This place belongs to me. No one else is qualified to touch it." "Restrain yourself. We're in public now. Can you keep a low profile?" Xiaoxia pushed him away, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. "I'm kissing my wife. Why should I care about keeping a low profile?" Mu Yaja said confidently. Xiaoxia was getting angrier. She was laughing in her heart. but she pretended to be angry and stuffed his mouth full of popcorn. Yu and Xianxia sat at the side and stared intently at the screen. They had a tacit understanding that the two of them were like two huge light bulbs that were shining brightly. By the time they finished watching the movie, it was already past 9 in the evening. When it was over, people walked out and couldn't stop praising the movie. Most of them were boyfriends who accompanied their girlfriends to watch the movie. Girls liked romantic movies, especially romantic ones like this. Although most of them came for Xianxia, after watching the movie, they were all attracted to Xianxia's performance. That Xianxia acted so well. I cried when I saw the ending. The female lead's eyes were filled with drama. Her acting skills are very good. Chapter 1916. I'll definitely watch her movies in the future. Her looks and acting skills are worth looking forward to. There were all sorts of praises and so on. Xianxia listened quietly and felt encouraged. Wuxia held her hand and the four of them walked out of the cinema. On the way to the parking lot, they took a stroll along the river. The night view was the most beautiful at this time of the year. Yu and Xianxia were playing with each other as they walked in front. Xianxia and Wuxia walked at the back. Looking at the two little guys playing with each other, she suddenly felt very satisfied. The happiest moment in the world was this moment. In fact, she was a more traditional girl. She did not yearn for glory and wealth, but she yearned for a peaceful life. She did not have to worry about food and clothing. To have a warm family, a loving husband, and two adorable Xiaobao twins, Yu and Xianxia, was already a great fortune for her. She was quite content with the present situation, she thought without pretension. She did not like to go out and play. Like those young girls, she did not like to go to bars, dance clubs, or nightclubs. She did not like noisy and extravagant places. When she was free, she liked to hold her beloved man's arm and take a stroll quietly. Her days were leisurely. Perhaps she did not live up to expectations. But it was true that she was very satisfied with such a life. God was good to her, and she knew how to cherish what she had. The world is unpredictable and capricious. You can never predict which will come first, tomorrow or an accident. So, she cherished what she had. That's great. Xianxia suddenly sighed. It's really good to have such a peaceful life. Where did you get all these sighs from? Wuxia laughed. I'm just expressing my feelings. Xianxia smiled contentedly. After I film a few more movies, I'm planning to retire. I don't need a lot of money, as long as I have enough to spend. I don't like a busy life. I prefer this peaceful life. Didn't I say that you don't need to act anymore? I can afford to raise you. Of course I know you can afford to raise me. You're so rich. Not to mention me, even if there were thousands of me, it wouldn't be a problem for you to raise me. Wuxia was puzzled. Then why do you insist on making movies? It's just a dream. A person without dreams was no different from a salted fish. I just want to realize my value. Little fool. The two of them talked and laughed. When they arrived at the parking lot, Xianxia called the two noisy little guys to go home. After coaxing the two little guys to bed, Xianxia also washed up and went to bed. A certain energetic man wanted her again. Xianxia pushed him away. It's getting late. Let's sleep. I want it. With just 2 words, his ambition was as clear as day. Xianxia ignores him. It's already 11 o'clock. You have to get up early to work tomorrow. It's okay, I have good stamina. Xianxia, you can't do it even if you have good stamina. I'll wake up earlier than you tomorrow. I have to rush to work. Just for a while. The man's ambition was hard to hide. He pressed his body against hers and even knew how to bargain with her. Xianxia blushed and mumbled, I'm on my period these 2 days. It's not convenient. Period? The man raised his eyebrows suspiciously, as if he didn't believe her. Really? Chapter 1917. Wuxia, on the other hand, looked a little frustrated and disappointed. Why was her period here? He had worked so hard, but she did not have any reaction at all. Did she not know what his ambition was? Xianxia would take birth control pills behind his back. How could she fall for it so easily? Now that her career was on the rise, It was not suitable for her to have another child. Moreover, she already had 2 cute little guys by her side. If she had another child, wouldn't it be a mess? Yun Shirshir thought that it was enough to have Xiao Yichen and Yu, these 2 clowns. She did not want a 3rd child. However, Mu Yaja did not think so. He was still hoping that she would give him another little princess. Therefore, in a certain aspect, he was especially proactive. However, Yun Shirshir was going to be tortured by him. She did not know where this man got his energy from. After a night of passion, he could still go to work energetically the next day, but she could not. If he continued like this, she would be exhausted. Yun Shirshir did not want to talk to him anymore. She pulled the blanket over herself, wrapped it around her, and closed her eyes to sleep. Mu Yaja could only give up when she was so shameless. There was no hurry. There was still a long way to go. He lay down obediently and hugged her. Then, they fell asleep together. Over the past few days, the box office sales had been good news. Soon, it broke the 2 billion mark. Lin Fengtian and a few investors were overjoyed and held a huge celebration party. At the premiere, a few of the main cast members said that if the box office sales could break the 2 billion mark, each of them would fulfill a small wish of their fans. However, now that the box office sales had broken the expected target, it was time to fulfill the bold words that they had said at the beginning. On the night that the box office sales broke the 2 billion mark, Gu Xianxia, who had been silent for a long time, was the first to release an erotic photo. Back then, at the premiere, under the collective encouragement of his fans, he promised that if the box office exceeded 2 billion, he would contribute a nude photo. When the fans heard this, it was as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Watching the movie once was not enough, they had to watch it 4 or 5 times. Then, they raised their heads and looked forward to the box office breaking the 2 billion mark. Gu Xianxia kept his promise and posted a nude photo of the woman. The so-called nude photo was at best half naked. He was lying in the bathtub and took a half-body selfie. In the photo, the messy forehead hair, the unruly eyes, and the fine and sexy body made the fans drool. Many fans were moved to tears, not because of Gu Xianxia's promise, but because he had finally updated his Weibo after being silent for so long. This made all the hardcore fans cheer. Xianxia, as long as you're well, that's enough. Heart, Xianxia will love you forever. I heard that you're sick. I hope you can take good care of yourself. Xianxia, we will always be your strongest backing. I hope you have a good rest. In the blink of an eye, this Weibo post attracted hundreds of thousands of likes and quickly reached hundreds of thousands of reposts. It could be seen that even if Gu Xianxia was banned, his influence was still not to be underestimated. Yun Shirshir promised that if the box office sales broke the 2 billion mark, she would personally remove her makeup on the show and show her bare face. Chapter 1918. The audience held their breaths. Everyone present was a fan of the original novel of The Green Apple. They were fans of the coupling of Gu Xianxia and Yun Shirshir. They liked both Gu Xianxia and Yun Shirshir. Surprisingly, most of Yun Shirshir's fans were female. After all, girls liked beautiful things, and they yearned for Yun Shirshir's natural beauty. Hence, when Yun Shirshir removed her makeup bit by bit, everyone held their breaths. The audience was afraid to appear in front of the public camera. She had always been a delicate and refined beauty like a goddess. Once she removed her makeup, she would look like a scene of a car accident. This would shatter everyone's fantasies. Some people thought that Yun Shirshir's bare face wouldn't be too beautiful, but it wouldn't be to the point of being unbearable to look at. She could only be considered as a passerby. After all, her foundation was still there. However, just as Yun Shirshir removed her makeup and lifted her head to face the audience with a smile, the audience let out an exaggerated gasp of surprise. Oh my God! It wasn't an exaggeration to say that she looked exactly the same as when she put on light makeup, especially those eyes. What thick eyelashes, those bright eyes, and when she narrowed her eyes and smiled, they were as charming as silk. They were as enchanting as water. She had a perky nose and soft cherry blossom lips. What was even more shocking was that her skin was fair and translucent. Her skin was like the finest jade that could be broken with a flick of a finger. The host was also very surprised. When the program team had asked Xianxia if he could fulfill the promise that Xianxia had made at the premiere and show her bare face to the audience, Xianxia had gladly agreed. The host had even joked about it. Which female celebrity would be willing to show her bare face on a program? Even if she wanted to show her bare face, she would just remove her eyeliner and eyelashes. She wouldn't even remove her foundation makeup. However, Xianxia had said, use the strongest makeup remover. It doesn't matter if she removes it completely. One of the female hosts couldn't help but mutter in her heart, oh my god, this Xianxia is taking things too hard. Can't she just pretend to remove her makeup? Why did they have to be so exaggerated? Nowadays, which female celebrity could truly withstand the test of removing makeup? The most important step of makeup was the foundation to even out the skin tone. Many female celebrities had to stay up late to memorize scripts and rush to film, so their endocrine imbalance caused their skin tone to darken. There were also many spots, so they couldn't do without foundation. However, when Xianxia showed her bare face, this female host was the first to stand up and question her. You didn't remove it completely, did you? She held the microphone and asked in an exaggerated manner. The male host at the side frowned. This female host was the pillar of the TV station. She could be said to be a gold medal host, but she had already become famous due to her pair of huge breasts. In terms of hosting skills, it was obvious that she was just passable. She stood up and questioned, causing another senior male host to frown in dissatisfaction. If Xianxia didn't clear her doubts, then it would seem that Xianxia was hypocritical and pretentious. She was obviously trying to stir up trouble. If this continued, he was afraid that Xianxia wouldn't be able to get out of the limelight. The program team invited celebrities to do the program for a win-win partnership. The celebrities used the program team to promote their own movies, and the program team used the celebrities to increase the ratings. Therefore, the program team rarely made embarrassing requests of the celebrities in public. Chapter 1919. That female host pretended to exaggerate and shook her head. I don't believe it. Can I touch it? Let me do such a good thing. That male host rushed forward to give it a try before the female host could. The audience let out a kind laugh. Xianxia said shyly, let her do it? I think Sister Xing doesn't believe that I removed it cleanly. I indeed don't believe it because there's no difference between your bare face and when you're wearing light makeup. Saying so, she turned around and explained to the audience, we need to know that there are very few girls who have such perfect skin. So, for the fairness of the program, we have the right to question whether the makeup was removed cleanly, right? The audience cheered, yes. Then let's invite an audience member to come up and try it with me, okay? Many audience members enthusiastically raised their hands. Xianxia felt that she had been tricked, but she didn't feel guilty at all. After all, she had made sure that her makeup was removed cleanly and was very confident in herself. The female host walked down the stage, swept a glance, and casually pointed to a girl with exquisite makeup. When the audience member went up on stage, she asked, Beauty, may I know what your occupation is? I'm a makeup artist. Then you must be very experienced. The female host smiled. The male host could only follow and finish this segment. A makeup artist is quite professional. Then please take a look and see if our Xianxia's makeup is removed cleanly. Okay. The audience member walked to Xianxia's side and leaned closer to take a look. Then, she carefully touched it with her hand and a trace of surprise flashed past her eyes. How is it? Xianxia smiled sweetly and looked at her. The audience was shocked for a while and then nodded in a daze. It's removed cleanly. Really? The female host still didn't believe it. She walked up and specially touched it before dispelling the suspicion in her heart. It was a real bare face. She was taken aback. Although she felt indignant, she still had to announce, our Xianxia has really removed all her makeup. Xianxia smiled. Because I removed it twice, it's definitely clean. Since he made a promise to the audience, he will definitely fulfill it. The male host immediately said, a real goddess can withstand the test of makeup remover. No wonder our Xianxia dared to say such bold words at the premiere. She's obviously very confident in her bare face. I'm so jealous. The female host looked extremely envious. Tell me, what skincare products do you use? Does this count as advertising? I haven't signed the contract yet, so I can't tell you. It's a secret. Xianxia joked. Her humor made everyone in the audience laugh. Then secretly reveal it to me. I'm so envious of your skin. I feel that you look more natural and beautiful without makeup. Actually, when it comes to skincare, I don't buy a lot of bottles and jars like other girls. I pay more attention to nourishing my body from the inside out, so I rarely use any skincare products. Usually, I pay attention to nourishing my body. Because actors often stay up late. Staying up late is the #1 killer for women. Chapter 1920. So you have to pay attention to your health. Replenishing your blood is the most important thing. Secondly, you have to pay more attention to your sleep. When I'm not filming, I go to bed very early. Thirdly, you have to pay attention to your hydration. Of course, I'm not asking you to buy hydration products. I brew my tea with wolfberries and longans to replenish water from the inside out. Coupled with the combination of work and rest, it can maintain the youthful state of your skin. Actually, there's another very important point. You're born with it. The recording of the show was very successful. The viewership ratings that night increased by 2 percentage points. Compared to the previous viewership ratings, it was a huge breakthrough and became the viewership champion of all variety shows. After the show ended, Xianxia barefaced and True Goddess Xianxia barefaced quickly occupied the top search rankings. Many netizens expressed their envy after seeing Xianxia's barefaced face. Most of the female netizens, while marveling at Xianxia's barefaced face, went to her Weibo to follow her and leave comments, asking for tips on maintaining her skin. What was even more shocking was that after this episode, many cosmetics and skincare brands extended an olive branch to her. Qin Zhou successfully signed a few more cosmetics contracts. Of course, this was all in the future. At the same time, the green apple was still firmly at the top of the box office rankings. Although it had declined from the initial trend, it continued to grow steadily and slowly. Except for an American blockbuster that was released on New Year's Day, it was easily overtaken by The Green Apple again. The economic benefits it brought were immeasurable. The popularity of the movie caused Xianxia's social status to soar. Although there was a lot of competition in the entertainment industry, only the newcomers were happy and the old ones were not. However, Xianxia's explosive popularity was still a rare phenomenon. That night, The Green Apple was only a few $1 million away from breaking the Chinese box office record. It was only a step away. Lu Jinyu booked a private room at the bar for a gathering. When Wuxia arrived with Xianxia, the group of brothers was already there. Boss, sister-in-law. Everyone stood up and greeted him respectfully. Xianxia smiled and said, "Don't be so polite. Just call me Xianxia." Her sister-in-law felt awkward when she heard that. That won't do. Xianxia is our boss's nickname. We don't dare to overstep our boundaries. Xianxia said half jokingly and half seriously. However, Lu Jinyu said, "Actually, I also want Xianxia. It sounds nice and intimate." Wuxia glared at him coldly. Lu Jinyu shuddered. Xianxia jeered from the side. "See, I told you." "Jinyu, did you see the boss's eyes? Why don't you obediently call her sister-in-law?" Xianxia glared at Wuxia. "Hey, what are you doing?" Xianxia clicked his tongue and teased, "Sister-in-law, can't you tell? Boss is a wife-protecting maniac. If you call him that, boss will get jealous." Xianxia was speechless. "I can't tell. Boss is usually so aloof, but when it comes to sister-in-law, he turns into a jealous lover. Boss is not aloof, he's coquettish. On the surface, he's ascetic, but deep down he's really coquettish." Wuxia gave them a cold look as a warning. Chapter 1921. Everyone laughed and sat down to have a good time. Wuxia did not like crowded events, but since it was a gathering organized by Lu Jinyu, he was very willing to attend. Besides, he wanted Xianxia to get to know his buddies better. They were all reliable friends, and he also hoped that she would be able to integrate into his circle. Xianxia was naturally willing to do so. However, she was not a good drinker, so she used tea instead of alcohol. These guys knew how to read her mood, so they did not force her to drink. Halfway through, when Xianxia went to the bathroom, Xianxia suddenly said to Wuxia, "Boss, have you received the invitation to the film festival this time? Are you going?" "I'm thinking about it." In the past, whenever there was a film festival in the country, the organizers would send Wuxia an invitation. As the big boss behind Huanyu, Wuxia's status was very important. If he could participate, it would definitely add to the glory of the film festival. However, Wuxia did not care about most of these invitations. Firstly, it was because he was not interested. Secondly, it was because he did not have the time. However, this film festival was different. All the main cast members of The Green Apple would participate. Moreover, as a nominee for various major awards, The Green Apple had a strong momentum this time. They had the ambition to win all the awards. In addition to aiming for the Best Actor, Best Film, Best Adaptation, Best Newcomer, and Best Actress awards, these were also the most exciting segments. Regarding the nominations for this film festival, Lin Fengtian was very ambitious. He hoped that Xianxia could win the Best Actress award. In fact, in terms of ability, Xianxia should win the Best Actress award. This year's film market was in a foul state. Many movies were crudely made. Among all the movies, The Green Apple could be said to be a dark horse. Xianxia's acting skills were even better than those of the other A-list actresses. Therefore, Lin Fengtian had high hopes for Xianxia. However, there were many benefits involved. The selection of awards no longer had much to do with one's ability. First, it looked at one's background. Second, it looked at one's popularity. The film festival would release the voting online half a month in advance, and the 5 with the highest number of votes would be selected. Now that the voting was coming to an end, Xianxia had the highest number of votes and was in the lead, so she was nominated. The audience's eyes were bright. Xianxia's performance was indeed very eye-catching. Although it was only one work, her ability was right in front of them. No one could deny it. If Xianxia could win the Best Actress award, it would be beyond reproach. Of course, being popular was one thing. There were many shady dealings in the film festival, and there was no lack of judges manipulating and tampering with the name list. Moreover, Xianxia was a newcomer who had just debuted. Although she had achieved great results with just one movie, many people would shrink back and not dare to hope for her to win the title of Best Actress with just one movie. However, if there was Wuxia behind the scenes, it would be different. With Wuxia's status, becoming a Best Actress was just a matter of a word. Chapter 1922. Lu Jinyu nodded and said, "That's true. There's also a veteran actress who's been nominated for 8 years. Her performance is commendable, but she hasn't won the Best Actress award. There's a lot of news that she's going to win the Best Actress award this time." Xianxia frowned and asked, "Are you talking about Chen Han?" "That's her." Xianxia shook his head and sighed. "Then it's going to be difficult for sister-in-law this time. If Chen Han is going to win the Best Actress award, sister-in-law will at most win the Best Newcomer award this time. But the Best Newcomer award is not bad either. It's like a layer of gold plating." Lu Jinyu rolled his eyes speechlessly. "Are you stupid? If Boss makes an appearance, the Best Newcomer award and Best Actress award will be taken away. I don't care about that. Then what are you worried about?" "What I care about is whether Boss will attend the film festival this time." Xianxia laughed and said, "Why do you care about that? What does it have to do with you whether Boss attends or not?" "Because as an investor of the film festival, I've received an invitation too. If Boss doesn't attend, then I'll ask sister-in-law to walk the red carpet with me. I happen to be lacking a female companion." As soon as he said that, Xianxia laughed and said, "Don't even think about it. Sister-in-law might not agree. Sister-in-law is understanding and gentle. She definitely won't reject me. Dream on." Wuxia spat out. Lu Jinyu smiled and said, "I heard that sister-in-law doesn't have a male companion. She can't walk the red carpet alone, right? She'll be laughed at." "Do you think I don't know what you're thinking?" Wuxia sneered. "You've invested in the film festival. If I attend, then you can use this as a bargaining chip to raise the price of the title sponsorship and advertising. In the end, you'll be the one who reaps the benefits, won't you? Lu Jinyu's little ambition was exposed, but he wasn't ashamed. Instead, he laughed and said, "So, boss, you should attend the film festival. If you attend the film festival, the media will have to add more than 100 seats. You rarely appear in front of the public. It's not a bad idea to accompany sister-in-law on the red carpet this time. It's not impossible for me to attend." "Boss, since you said so, it seems like you have a condition." Xianxia laughed. "Boss, what is it?" "As my female companion, wouldn't it be embarrassing if she walked the red carpet at the film festival and didn't win a single award?" Wuxia gave a start and left the rest for Lu Jinyu to figure out. Xianxia nodded in agreement. "That's right. You have to win the Best Newcomer Award and the Best Actor Award, right?" "All right. Boss, don't worry and leave this matter to me. I'll talk to the organizers." "No need." Xianxia's calm voice came from behind. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice, but they didn't know when Xianxia came back from the bathroom. She happened to hear them secretly discussing the award, and her expression became slightly pale. Xianxia sat down beside Wuxia and said slowly, "Let nature take its course when it comes to awards. If there's one, there's one. If there's none, there's no need to force it. You don't have to do anything behind the scenes. Even if I take it, I might not be happy. I still want to rely on my strength to obtain the prize that belongs to me under fair conditions." Chapter 1923. Xianxia smiled sweetly and replied, "Wouldn't it be more fulfilling to bring down the shady dealings behind the scenes? If I had known from the start that I was going to win the award, I wouldn't have been so surprised." Lu Jinyu shook his head and teased, "Sister-in-law, don't say such nice things now. If you lose the award because of shady dealings, I'm afraid you'll cry in boss's arms." "Who's crying?" Xianxia retorted stubbornly. "At most, I'll be disappointed for a while. I'm not that weak. Besides, I feel that I'm still lacking in maturity and capability. Even if I don't win the award, I won't feel disappointed. Anyway, I have to adjust my mentality." After a pause, she continued, "Besides, I don't have much hope for the award. The most important thing is to participate in it. This is my first time attending a film festival. The most important thing is to see more of the big scenes." She didn't have much hope in the first place. She had only acted in one movie. It was already the biggest surprise that the box office sales were so high. What else could she expect from an award? If she could become the Best Actress award with just one movie, wouldn't all the veteran actors and A-list actresses who had acted in so many movies be crying beside the toilet if they didn't even get a single nomination? If she walked the red carpet and won the Best Actress award in a daze, that would be considered shady dealings. To be honest, the competition for this year's film festival was very fierce. Chen Han, the veteran actor, had sold the overseas copyright for a sky-high price for a literary film that was released in North America this year. Although the box office sales were mediocre, the film's reputation was through the roof. Her performance in the film was also very stunning. Moreover, the film had been in theaters for a long time. After several rounds of accumulation, it was much more popular than her. Besides, although she shot to fame overnight, she didn't have a strong fan base. Her short accumulation of fans couldn't compare to those A-list actresses. She didn't have much competition at all. Thinking about it this way, she actually felt relieved. She was already very satisfied to be able to win the Best Newcomer award. She still hoped that she could fight steadily and steadily. There was no need for her to soar to the top. If there were too many ups and downs, she wouldn't be able to get used to it. She was participating in the film festival because it was her first time. Hence, she was very nervous. Lu Jinyu smiled and said, "What's so great about a local film festival? If you want to see a big scene, ask boss to send you to the Oscars Film Festival. That's called Starlight Shining. It's not a festival that just any celebrity in the country can be invited to." "Really? To be invited to the Oscars Film Festival, regardless of whether one's work was nominated or not, just walking on the star-studded red carpet was already the highest praise for a domestic artist. This was like studying hard for 12 years and studying abroad. It was equivalent to being plated with a layer of gold. It wasn't that they worshipped foreigners, but that the Aslan Film Festival was the most prestigious film festival in the world. It had a wide influence and the highest standards of film festivals. If any artist in the country could be nominated, it would be a joyous thing. Female celebrities were all racking their brains to walk the red carpet at the Oscars Film Festival. If he brought it back, he would be able to write articles for a year. Of course, there were also female celebrities who spent a lot of money to buy tickets. Although they spent a lot of money, it was worth it since they could increase their fame. Chapter 1924. Wuxia, can you take me there? I've always wanted to go to the Oscars Film Festival. If I can see my idol in person, I'll have no regrets in life. Your idol? Yeah. Lu Jinyu's interest was piqued. Sister-in-law has an idol? Who is it? Leonardo. Xianxia's lips twitched. Little Li? Little Li was Leonardo's nickname, and it was also the nickname his fans gave him. Once upon a time, Leonardo's incomparably handsome face had captivated countless fans. However, ever since he decided to pursue the path of strength, his looks had deteriorated year by year. In recent years, his looks had even fallen below the freezing point. However, Xianxia still regarded him as her idol. Even though he was not as good-looking as before. Xianxia defended her idol and retorted, "What, Little Li? He's my idol." Xianxia said mercilessly, "It's a pity that your idol is old. He has a potbelly and stubble. He's no longer as handsome as he used to be." What a joke. How dare he praise another man in front of sister-in-law? Who knows how boss will make things difficult for him later? He was a person who knew how to judge the situation and observe the situation. When sister-in-law mentioned that her idol was Leonardo, boss's expression was already very strange. Xianxia did not forget to flatter him. "My idol is boss. He's handsome and rich. He's a diamond-level idol." Lu Jinyu was disgusted by Xianxia. "Please don't disgust me. I feel like vomiting." "What? Are you openly questioning boss's charm?" Xianxia tried to sow discord between them. "No, he's questioning your flattery skills," Xianxia said quietly. Lu Jinyu gave her a thumbs up. Wuxia's lips curled into a smirk. He, who was usually silent, picked up his wineglass and took a sip of red wine. Xianxia suddenly held his arm. "By the way, will you attend the film festival?" "Didn't I ask you before? Will you go to the film festival?" Wuxia pretended to be mysterious and did not give her a clear answer. Instead, he asked slowly, "Do you want me to go? Just because I want you to go?" Xianxia smiled. "If you go, you can be my date. I'll hold your arm and walk the red carpet together." Xianxia coughed from the side and said, "Sister-in-law, you should be more reserved. Which girl invites a man to be her date? What's the big deal? He's a block of wood. If we wait for him to open his mouth, won't we have to wait till the end of time?" Xianxia did not mind being reserved, though. She actually hoped that Wuxia would go. It was the first red carpet in her life. She hoped that she could walk down the red carpet with him and accept the baptism of the spotlight. It must be memorable. More importantly, other than Wuxia, she could not think of anyone else to be her male companion. Firstly, she didn't want to walk the red carpet with a stranger of the opposite sex. Secondly, even if she was willing, Wuxia wouldn't agree and would be angry. He might even ban the male star if he was unhappy. Actually, she had wanted to hold Lin Fengtian's arm and walk the red carpet. However, when Xianxia brought this up, Lin Fengtian was shocked and retreated. "I don't dare to be your date. If I walk the red carpet with you today, I might be banned tomorrow." Chapter 1925. Wuxia's smile deepened. However, he still pretended to be reserved. "Hence," he said arrogantly, "since you want to walk the red carpet with me so much, I'll cancel my schedule to accompany you." These words were truly high-sounding and dignified. In fact, Wuxia had already planned to walk the red carpet with her on the day of the film festival. Hence, he had cancelled all his schedule for that day in advance. However, he couldn't make it too obvious in front of his subordinates. Hence, he pretended to be cold and aloof, as if he didn't care. In fact, he cared a lot about it. Yun Shirshir glanced at him in exasperation. Seeing his cold and indifferent attitude, she suddenly snorted. Oh dear, why are you so reluctant to do this? Actually, you don't have to make things difficult for yourself. If you don't want to, I can walk the red carpet with Jinyu. As she spoke, Yun Shirshir glanced at Lu Jinyu and threw him a long olive branch. Lu Jinyu felt awkward and didn't know if he should agree. Mu Yaja's expression changed immediately. He said blankly, "No." "Why not? Didn't you say that you wanted to walk the red carpet with me? Why did you change your mind at the last minute?" Mu Yaja said unhappily. There was a collective silence. "Boss, you're too reserved. Sister-in-law is just trying to provoke you." Sure enough, even though Boss was usually very smart, a man who had fallen in love would have an IQ that was almost negative. Can't Boss see that sister-in-law is trying to provoke him? Yun Shirshir glared at him. "I see that you're reluctant. I don't like to force people to do things they don't want to do. If you don't want to walk the red carpet with me, you don't have to force yourself." Mu Yaja was speechless and didn't know what to say. Jiang Shun was secretly happy. Is Boss being too reserved and being despised by sister-in-law? He looked at Mu Yaja's defeated expression. He had never seen Boss so sullen. Jiang Shun was secretly pleased. "Actually, it doesn't seem good to walk with you. Look, I just debuted, and there are already many people who are gossiping about who my backer is. Whenever I act in a movie, there will always be a lot of ridiculous conspiracy theories. If I walk the red carpet with you, then they'll definitely report that you're my sponsor and that you used the unspoken rules to get me to this position." Yun Shirshir's words were clear and logical. Mu Yaja, who was standing at the side, suddenly added, "Is there anything wrong with that?" Yun Shirshir stared at him with wide eyes. "Who else is behind you other than me?" Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes and replied confidently, "It's the truth." Yun Shirshir fell silent. "Hey, do you have to be like this? What do you mean by unspoken rules?" Mu Yaja said seriously, "It's only right and proper for a husband to spend resources on his wife." "That's not it. I acted in Director Lin's movie based on my own ability. What does it have to do with you?" Yun Shirshir said stubbornly. Jiang Shun reminded her, "Sister-in-law, you did rely on your own ability to become Phoenix Girl. However, the movie was able to achieve such a high box office because of Boss." "What do you mean?" Chapter 1926. Yun Shirshir was puzzled and asked, "What do you mean?" Jiang Shun downed the remaining dry red wine in his glass in one gulp, then said casually, "Actually, Huanyu has a lot of cinemas under its banner. In addition to the department stores that Dishing invests in, the reason why Huanyu can become half of the entertainment industry is because Huanyu constantly controls 80% of the media's influence and 60% of the cinema shares. On the first day of the screening of The Green Apple, the Mu Group sent out a secret document early in the morning. Xiao Mu said casually, "The Green Apple must break the box office record for Chinese films. As employees, we worked hard. If it weren't for the Mu Group's large-scale increase in the screening times and promotion of The Green Apple, the movie might not have achieved such great results. Sister-in-law, strictly speaking, this is also one of the unspoken rules." After listening to Jiang Shun's serious explanation, Yun Shirshir was dumbfounded. For a moment, her heart was filled with complicated feelings that she couldn't put into words. There was happiness, sweetness, disappointment, and a tinge of sadness. She had originally thought that The Green Apple had achieved such results because of her own capabilities. However, it seemed that it wasn't as simple as she thought. Lu Jinyu glanced at Yun Shirshir's expression and quickly understood why she was disappointed. "Hence," he said helplessly, "Sister-in-law, don't overthink it." Although what Jiang Shun said was true, the movie was able to achieve such results because of its ability. Although the cinemas have increased the screening times, we didn't kidnap the audience and bring them to the cinemas. Hence, this shows that this movie is really charming. That's why it didn't disappoint and became the box office champion. It's been more than 10 days since the screening. It should be breaking the box office record soon, right? Jiang Shun said excitedly. It should be soon. The box office of a Chinese film was 2.9 billion yuan. Currently, The box office of The Green Apple was 289 billion yuan. It was only a few million yuan away. Hence, it wouldn't be a problem for The Green Apple to become the Chinese box office champion overnight. Yun Shirshir fell silent. She looked at Mu Yaja in disdain. This man. No wonder there were always those gossips saying that she had a strong debut momentum. She must have a sugar daddy or a very strong backer behind her. This made her feel even more indignant. She had put in so much effort in order to produce the best work. No matter how hard and tiring it was, she had no complaints. But in the end it was like this. She had clearly put in a lot of effort, but a simple sentence, "She must have a sugar daddy behind her," easily erased all her efforts. It turned out that this man had been adding fuel to the fire behind the scenes. Yun Shirshir recalled the past. No wonder her resources had always been top-notch. It was all up to him. Yun Shirshir didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It seemed that she would never be able to wash away the rumors of her being involved in the unspoken rules. That was because she had really been pushed to the top. However, her husband was the one who had pushed her to the top. This was something that no one had expected. She was flattered so much that she felt at ease. You have to walk the red carpet with me. Mu Yaja spoke from the side. His attitude was firm and unquestionable. Yun Shirshir frowned. Why? There's no why. Chapter 1927. Lu Jinyu suddenly said, "Actually, sister-in-law, if you walk the red carpet with boss, there won't be any rumors. You don't know this, but the media has been tamed by the Mu Group. In the past, when boss had just debuted, those entertainment reporters were like flies, squatting outside his hotel in large groups. After that, they were taught a lesson by boss. Basically, no one dared to report about him anymore. If they dare to use boss to create hype, they'll basically be banned. So, you should walk the red carpet with boss. It's easy. It doesn't matter who I walk with. The point is he's really an awkward person. I just asked him to walk the red carpet with me, but he said that he was reluctant. I was being kind and told him to change to someone else, but he insisted that I walk the red carpet with him. He's so hard to please, Yun Shirshir said awkwardly. The main point of her words was that Mu Yaja was an awkward and arrogant person. The problem was, a certain man's face darkened when he heard her first sentence. It doesn't matter who you walk with? He asked sinisterly, who else do you want to walk the red carpet with? He swore. No matter who she said, regardless of gender, he would ban them. Just like how he banned Gu Xingzi. He meant what he said. Yun Shirshir was stunned and suddenly felt a little angry. This man is so awkward. Why can't he be a gentleman? Look at Xiao Yichen and Yu. Both of his sons know how to be gentlemanly to women. Why is he so overbearing when it comes to women? That's enough. No objections. It's decided about the film festival. Seeing Yun Shirshir's disdainful expression, Mu Yaja was furious. He simply did not want to hear any objections from her and made the decision domineeringly. Yun Shirshir wanted to say something but stopped. She raised her eyebrows and could not be bothered to object. Anyway, she had already decided to walk the red carpet with him. However, his attitude did not seem to be right. However, she had no choice. Anyway, he was a blockhead and would not understand what she was unhappy about. Lu Jinyu suddenly grinned and said, "Boss, do you think I should buy a judge's seat to play with?" "Jinyu, you don't know where to spend your money, do you? Why are you buying a judge's seat?" "I'm holding a trophy for my sister-in-law. The judges have the right to operate under the table. I'll buy a judge's seat and award the best actress to sister-in-law." Yun Shirshir was amused by him. Xianxia ridiculed, "How can it be that simple? Behind this trophy, there are many benefits involved. Don't play with fire and burn yourself." "I was joking. But seriously, sister-in-law, you might not get the Best Actor award this year. Don't be disappointed if you don't win," Lu Jinyu comforted her again. Yun Shirshir smiled and said helplessly, "Jinyu, that's enough. I'm not that fragile. It's just a trophy. I'm not that weak." "Oh, what a coincidence." A familiar voice came from not far away. Everyone turned around and saw Lin Fengtian and Qin Zhou walking over together. Behind them was someone Yun Shirshir could not be more familiar with. It was Hua Jin. Hua Jin did not expect to see her here. This bar was famous. Every time it was this time, many people in the industry would gather here. It could be said to be the hall of fame of the bar. Qin Zhou and Lin Fengtian were regulars here. Chapter 1928. Needless to say, Hua Jin was even more familiar. Before he debuted, he had been hanging out in this bar all year round. Many of the senior guests knew him. However, when Hua Jin saw Wuxia holding Xianxia in his arms, his eyes flickered for a moment. Then, the corners of his lips curled up coldly. No matter how stupid a person was, it was not difficult to guess how close the two of them were when they saw them snuggling up to each other intimately. Moreover, his eyes were sharp. He immediately saw the engagement ring on Wuxia's finger. It was a pair of rings on Xianxia's finger. Could it be that this man was her fiancé? When Hua Jin thought of this, he felt a stab in his heart. He was a little envious. Qin Zhou laughed as he walked over and hooked his arm around him. I didn't expect to meet our big boss here. What a coincidence. Big boss? Hua Jin carefully asked Lin Fengtian. This is Huan Yu's behind-the-scenes boss, Wuxia. Don't you know him? Hua Jin was stunned. He shook his head and answered honestly, I've only heard of this name, but I've never seen him before. I'm warning you. If you interact with this person, you must be careful with your words and actions. Do you understand? Don't speak without thinking like before. If you anger him, even if your backer comes forward, he won't be able to protect you. Do you understand? Lin Fengtian was in a good mood today. He had asked Qin Zhou to come over for a drink. Coincidentally, he had asked Hua Jin out to discuss a collaboration. Hence, the three of them gathered together. Hua Jin respected Lin Fengtian quite a bit. He was even more in awe of Qin Zhou. Hence, in front of the two of them, he was quite restrained. He was a shrewd person. He would speak the human language when he saw people and the ghost when he saw ghosts. Lin Fengtian thought highly of Hua Jin. He also knew a lot about Hua Jin's past. Hence, he intended to guide this young junior. You're working with Xianxia on a TV series, right? That's right. Her scenes are almost done. Hua Jin said honestly. Lin Fengtian nodded and said, it's better to keep a distance from her. This was the first time he had heard someone say something like this. Generally speaking, he could only advise others to stay away from him. However, no one had reminded him to keep a distance from that person. The person behind Xianxia is very possessive. If you get too close to her, be careful that you don't get banned. Lin Fengtian said in a meaningful tone. As he spoke, he walked over and proposed a toast to Wuxia. Wuxia glanced at him, then suddenly looked at Hua Jin behind him and narrowed his eyes. Xianxia looked in Hua Jin's direction and was stunned for a moment. Then she smiled and nodded at him. Hua Jin also smiled and said, Sure, what a coincidence. You're here too. Having a drink with a friend. Jiang Shen was drunk and retorted, Sister-in-law, what do you mean by having a drink with a friend? You don't even touch a drop of alcohol. You only drink soft drinks. It's a loss to drink with you. Sister-in-law, you're a bully. Xianxia waved her fist at him. Shut up. After interacting with them for so long, she was already familiar with Wuxia's buddies. Hence, she could joke with them. Sister-in-law? Hua Jin frowned in disbelief. Chapter 1929. In the end, he addressed Xianxia as sister-in-law in a respectful manner. What was the background of her fiancé? Even Lin Fengtian had personally reminded him not to speak without thinking and offend him. Otherwise, no matter how strong his backer was, he would not be able to protect him. He had heard that Xianxia had been banned from the entertainment industry. Was it also this man's doing? It could be seen that this was an incomparably powerful man, a supremely proud king. Hua Jin's heart skipped a beat. Wuxia narrowed his eyes and continued drinking, ignoring Hua Jin's gaze. At that moment, Hua Jin was conquered by his aura. The clash between men was a battle of auras. Wuxia just sat there with his back straight and his expression calm. No one in the entertainment industry could match his exquisite and handsome face. Even Xianxia was not qualified to do so. If such a man was born in the entertainment industry, he would not have the status of Xianxia. Just by sitting there, he did not need to say anything or show any expression. Just his irresistible aura alone was enough to make people feel awe and admiration from the bottom of their hearts. The suppression of his aura made Hua Jin subconsciously feel that he had lost. There was no way for him to fight back. In just a second, the difference between the two of them was obvious. Hua Jin thought to himself that this man was qualified enough to have someone as beautiful as Xianxia. He admitted defeat. Hua Jin walked over and smiled gently at Xianxia. "Sister, is this brother-in-law?" He called her sister in a tone that was intimate but not overly intimate. He did not want to cause her any trouble. As for Xianxia, he did not have any complicated feelings for her. He had always treated her as his sister. Perhaps it was because of her gentle and charming aura that he yearned for. He had lacked familial love since he was young, especially maternal love. He had no concept of it at all. However, deep in the bones of men, there was an incomparably extravagant hope for maternal love. Therefore, Hua Jin had a sibling relationship with Xianxia. He treated her as his elder sister, perhaps because he was greedy for the mature and gentle feeling she gave off. Mu Yaja glanced at him. "Who is this?" Xianxia immediately said, "Hua Jin is in the same crew as me. He's a few years younger than me and we get along quite well." Mu Yaja immediately looked at him suspiciously. Hua Jin, on the other hand, smiled sweetly and called out obediently, "Brother-in-law, I heard my sister mention you when we were on set." Mu Yaja first looked him up and down. Suddenly, when he heard his respectful greeting, he faintly grunted. However, they did not reject him. It seemed that he had acknowledged him as brother-in-law. Xianxia felt gratified. The three of them joined the battle. Hence, the table was in full swing. The battle was fierce. The ending was undoubtedly tragic. Other than Mu Yaja and Hua Jin, the rest of the people were almost lying down. Mu Yaja was born with a good alcohol tolerance and knew how to control the situation. Moreover, no one dared to force him to drink too much. Hua Jin, on the other hand, often went to bars and nightclubs. He had been through hundreds of battles and his alcohol tolerance was very high. Xianxia also drank half a glass. As a result, the alcohol kicked in. She was a little drunk, and it was time for her to stop drinking. When they left, it was already very late. Chapter 1930. Tonight, he was in a good mood. Hua Jin watched the two leave and smiled as well. He then helped Lin Fengtian out of the room. When the car passed by the night market, Xianxia leaned against the window and suddenly said, "I want to eat skewers." Mu Yaja, however, rejected her unquestionably. Barbecue, junk food, and unhygienic. Why did she like to eat such things? "It's getting late. You should go back and rest." "No, I want to eat. I haven't eaten in a long time." Mu Yaja was speechless. "Didn't Qinzhou ask you to lose weight? We're going to walk the red carpet soon. You should at least maintain your figure, right? It's okay to eat a little. Just a little." Xianxia suddenly thought of something. "Don't tell me you haven't eaten skewers before?" "No." "Oh please. It's delicious. Actually, the real delicacies are hidden in the streets and alleys. The taste is really good. If you haven't eaten it before, you'll regret missing it." Xianxia was eloquent. She looked at the delicious food passing by outside the window and was fascinated. Perhaps it was because of the yearning in her eyes. Mu Yaja finally softened and asked the driver to stop the car by the side. The weather was a little cold at night. When she got out of the car, he deliberately put his jacket on her. "What are you doing? I'm not cold." "Put it on." He did not allow her to protest and used his jacket to wrap her slender body. Xianxia had no choice but to put it on. However, the man's considerations still warmed her heart. The night market in capital city was busiest until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. It was bustling with people. Although it was early in the morning, business was good at the stalls. There was a night market here. At night, there would be a lot of delicious food. The foodies who were rooted in capital city rarely visited those restaurants. That was because they knew that the real delicacies were hidden in alleys like these. As the saying goes, good wine fears no dark alleys. Although the area wasn't bustling, business was booming at night. Yun Shirshir finally found a seat. The table was low, and the stool was uneven. When Mu Yaja sat on it, the other end of the stool almost tilted up. Yun Shirshir's reflexes were quick, and she only managed to stabilize her balance by sitting on it. This broken stool. Mu Yaja cursed in his heart. The table was also very short. After all, with his height, the table only reached his waist when he sat down. He had never felt so uneasy before and was not used to it. Yun Shirshir glanced at his ashen face and laughed out loud. She had never seen Mu Yaja so nervous before. The Honorable Big Boss Mu was actually willing to lower himself to accompany her to eat at a roadside stall. Aya, could this be considered true love? Yun Shirshir covered her mouth and snickered. She was overjoyed. Mu Yaja had never been to such an occasion before, so he was at a loss. He did not understand. In such a simple place, even the table was missing half a corner and was not stable. What was there to patronize? Yun Shirshir laughed at him. You don't understand. Actually, skewers are the most popular culture in the night market. I used to come here to eat skewers when I got off work late. Especially in the summer, it was especially good. In the winter, business is not good. In the summer, there are dozens of tables like this. Even 10 people can't handle it. As Yun Shirshir spoke, she lowered her head to order something. It was midnight and she was very hungry. Chapter 1931. He pointed at one of the lines and questioned, "What's a silkworm cocoon?" Yun Shirshir looked up and looked at him as if she was looking at a retard. She was extremely disdainful. What else can it be? After a silkworm baby spits silk and opens the cocoon, the silkworm will turn into a small ball inside. That's called a silkworm cocoon. Of course, he knew what a silkworm cocoon was. The problem was, could this show be eaten? That's a worm. Mu Yaja could not stay calm anymore. Can it be eaten? The taste is not bad. What cicada? Mu Yaja's mysophobia was acting up. He felt that there was a black mass of worms flying in front of his eyes. Before he could see them, he already felt his stomach churning. This restaurant's roasted cicada is very delicious. My colleague brought me here to eat it. At first, I also felt disgusted, but after eating a little, it was like opening the door to a new world. Mu Yaja felt that the world was a fantasy. He had never heard that worms could be eaten. Moreover, cicada also has medicinal value. Eating it is not only harmless to the body, but it's also beneficial. However, barbecue is just for the taste. There's no need to consider whether it's nutritious or not. Now that I haven't eaten skewers, I'll definitely order cicada. After Yun Shirshir was done ordering, she passed it to the boss. Soon, the food was served in skewers. When Mu Yaja saw the first serving, he immediately covered his mouth in disgust. This woman had a strong taste. She actually ate pig brains. Pig brains were roasted with chopped green onions, soy sauce, and garlic paste on top. It was especially fragrant, and the oil was constantly boiling. However, just imagining it made him flinch. That was a brain. Yun Shirshir was speechless. Hey, what's wrong? You look like you're about to throw up. Is it that exaggerated? It feels disgusting. Just take a bite and you'll feel that there's such a delicacy in the world. Yun Shirshir encouraged. Mu Yaja, on the other hand, gritted his teeth and refused to look at her. Just looking at it was enough to make him feel nauseous. If he tasted it again, wouldn't he vomit? Perhaps it was because he had received a Western-style education since he was young, but when he was younger, he didn't even dare to eat a fish on the table. Westerners were especially disgusted by animal heads. Especially when he was eating the fish, his eyes were staring at him. It was very scary. However, after he returned to China, he gradually accepted the Chinese food culture. However, he only dared to look at things like brains, claws, and worms from afar. He did not dare to taste them himself. Yun Shirshir kept brainwashing him. She was determined to let him have a taste. Don't think that this is a brain. Just tell yourself that you're eating a piece of tofu. That's all. I'm not eating. Mu Yaja's attitude was firm and unwavering. Yun Shirshir pouted and said, "Please, can you be more manly? If I dare to eat it, why don't you dare to eat it? What's in your head? You've even eaten snails before." These words, however, provoked him. Mu Yaja furrowed his brows and stared at her intently. Finally, with an expression as if he was facing death, he closed his eyes and allowed her to feed him a spoonful of crushed brains. He kept brainwashing himself. This is tofu, this is tofu. Mu Yaja endured the discomfort and swallowed a mouthful without tasting it. How is it? It's tasteless. You swallowed it directly? Chapter 1932. Mu Yaja's face immediately turned pale. No. Before he could finish his sentence, Xianxia suddenly grabbed his jaw and forced a mouthful of pig's brain into his mouth. Mu Yaja was speechless. This was simply inhumane torture. For the first time in his life, Mu Yaja had the urge to strangle her to death. Had this fellow become bold? Just as he was about to explode, his tongue tasted a trace of extremely delicious food. His expression instantly froze. He did not think too much just now as all his attention was focused on her. However, when he tasted the taste with his senses, it was indeed very delicious. The taste was not bad. Xianxia grinned. Isn't that right? Doesn't it taste great? It's not bad. He expressed implicitly. However, these 3 words were already a compliment. It was an acknowledgement of the pig's brain. Look at how inexperienced you are. Xianxia snickered. Mu Yaja's expression immediately turned cold. This stupid woman actually dared to tease him so recklessly and even laughed at him for being inexperienced. However, he was not angry. Perhaps he liked her no matter what she was like. He liked it when she teased him and made fun of him without restraint. This made him feel that there was no distance between them. All along, everyone, even Xianxia, would more or less have a sense of respect for him. This feeling seemed to arise spontaneously. Even though he wanted to be closer to Xianxia, the little guy was still very respectful of him. However, this woman made him feel that interacting with her was very natural and there was no need to be restrained by anything. This feeling was very good. While Mu Yaja was in a daze, Xianxia took advantage of the heat and stuffed another mouthful of cicada into his mouth. Xianxia smiled and said, "Try it. How does it taste?" Almost instinctively, Mu Yaja turned his head and spat out the cicada. "It's disgusting. I don't eat worms." The pig brain could barely accept it. Knowing won't do. He hated bugs the most. They felt dirty. Xianxia's lips twitched. "Why did you spit it out?" "I don't like it." "You also said earlier that you don't like eating pig brains. But after tasting it, don't you also think that it tastes pretty good?" "That's acceptable, but not the worm." Just thinking about it made him feel disgusted. "Forget it, I won't force you." Xianxia pouted and snorted, then continued to eat. She hadn't eaten skewers for a long time, so she enjoyed them very much. Mu Yaja looked at her silently. When she ate, there was a different kind of temptation. Her pouty little mouth took a bite of the skewer, and her lips glistened with oil. As she chewed, her tender lips opened and closed, which was extremely tempting. When she ate, her manners were very good. Perhaps it was because beautiful people had a special charm even when they were eating. This was what it meant to be a feast for the eyes. This little thing always unknowingly revealed such a coquettish look from time to time. Watching her eat so attractively, Mu Yaja suddenly felt his throat becoming slightly hoarse. "Eat slowly." "Aren't you eating?" Xianxia looked at him with regret. "I ordered a lot. If you don't eat, you won't be able to finish it. If I can't finish it, I'll leave it." "What a waste of food." Xianxia snorted coldly. "No matter what, you have to finish it. Make the best use of it." Chapter 1933. Who asked you to order so much? Mu Yaja grumbled, but he picked up a skewer of crispy bones to share her burden. "Is it nice?" "Not bad." Xianxia laughed. "You don't know how to appreciate food. My dear, don't have such a heavy burden of being an idol. You should eat and drink well when you're alive." Mu Yaja was speechless. The 2 of them sat around the table. Xianxia ate heartily. She was full by the time she had finished eating. Mu Yaja stood up to settle the bill, but Xianxia waved her hand generously. "This meal is on me." Mu Yaja was speechless. "Wipe your mouth." As he spoke, he passed the handkerchief to her. Xianxia carefully wiped the grease off her mouth as she ran to settle the bill. The total was more than 100 yuan, so it was still considered a good deal. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, they wanted to go home and rest early. Xianxia held onto his arm and snuggled up in the crook of his arm. Her extremely coquettish look made his heart skip a beat. Thus, he hugged her shoulders, lowered his head, and kissed her deeply on the lips. He lingered and did not go deeper. Although it was just a light kiss, it was still not enough. When he let go of her, Xianxia was already intoxicated. Her face looked as if it had been smeared with high-quality rouge, especially her pair of shimmering eyes. Wuxia's throat moved. In this chilly wind, his body was slightly hot. "Let's go home." He hugged her and wanted to quickly get into the car to avoid the wind. However, just as they were about to get into the car, Wuxia suddenly caught a glimpse of a light in a corner not far away. His gaze froze and he turned around abruptly. He saw a flash of light. Immediately after, there seemed to be a black shadow moving in the parterre. Someone was secretly taking pictures. With this realization, Wuxia said to her, "Get in the car." "What's the matter?" "Get in the car first. There's an entertainment reporter secretly taking pictures." When Xianxia heard this, she didn't dare to make a sound and quickly hid in the car. Wuxia walked in the direction of the figure. At first, that person didn't realize that Wuxia had discovered his presence. However, when he got closer, he suddenly realized that he had been discovered and turned to escape. "Stop right there," he said coldly. The entertainment reporter suddenly stopped in his tracks and turned around. However, he did not recognize the identity of the man in front of him and said in a somewhat annoyed tone, What did you take pictures of just now?" Wuxia asked coldly, and his tone was unfriendly. Seeing that his tone was not friendly, the entertainment reporter's attitude was not good either. He retorted arrogantly, "It's none of your business. What's that got to do with you? I don't care what you've taken." The entertainment reporter was so angry that he laughed instead. "Why should I? I have the right to reject your order." Xianxia had been very popular recently. Perhaps the word popular couldn't even describe the momentum of her popularity. She exploded in popularity overnight. The three words Xianxia were becoming more and more valuable. Qinzhou had taken very good measures to protect Xianxia. It was very rare for the entertainment reporters to take even a single shot of her. The reason he had been waiting here was to wait for another person. However, he didn't expect that instead of that person, an even bigger fish would come. Xianxia. Gosh, there was a mysterious man beside her. The two of them were very close to each other and were hugging each other. They looked very intimate. He even saw this man kissing her just now. Chapter 1934. He did not expect to be able to verify that Xianxia was indeed not a simple person. He had even managed to capture an intimate scene between the two of them, which was like a treasure to him. However, he did not expect the man to be so sharp as to discover it. Wuxia stared at him for a long time, like a ferocious lion staring at its prey. Suddenly, he stopped talking and sneered. His voice was as cold as ice. "What a right to refuse." He laughed. He laughed at the fact that the reporter refused a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. The entertainment reporter was stunned by his cold laughter. For a moment, he could not move and looked at him stiffly. Wuxia said coldly, "Go back. You can publish the photos if you want to. But I have to remind you of one thing. Don't lose your hands over some benefits." With that, he turned around and left expressionlessly. He got into the car and drove off. The entertainment reporter watched the car leave and fell to the ground in fright as if he had lost all his strength. The aura that Wuxia exuded just now was enough to make one's scalp tingle and shudder. Especially that pair of eyes, it made one's hair stand on end. Was he threatening him? Did he think that he was scared? He had been in the entertainment industry for so many years. Could it be that he grew up being scared? The entertainment reporter wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He did not know who this man was to have such a threatening aura. He hugged his DSLR tightly and returned home. He decided to create a piece of news overnight and publish it in the early hours of the morning. It would definitely drive the website's click-through rate. For online portals like them, the click-through rate meant profit. In the car, Xianxia leaned against the window. She covered her face with a cap and put on a mask. Wuxia had only been there for a short while, but she was already fully armed. When he got into the car and saw that she was ready, he did not know whether to laugh or cry. "He's gone. Who are you guarding against?" Xianxia looked out of the window and asked doubtfully, "Who's so wicked to secretly take photos of me? Who else could it be other than entertainment reporters? You're so popular now. In the eyes of the reporters, you're like a delicious cake," Wuxia said indifferently. Xianxia was still a little wary. "Did you chase after him just now? Did you manage to capture anything?" Wuxia laughed and said, "I took a picture of us kissing. Does that count?" "Then he didn't delete it?" "It doesn't matter to me." Xianxia was his woman. He couldn't wait to announce it to the whole world. This way, no one would dare to covet his little thing. Therefore, he didn't mind being secretly photographed. However, the problem was that if someone secretly took a photo and brought it back to the chief editor, if they saw the person in the photo, it would be another matter if they dared to publish it. It could be seen that this entertainment reporter wasn't very experienced. If it was an experienced entertainment reporter, they would have to take a detour when they saw him. They wouldn't even dare to take a second look at him, let alone take a sneak shot. Wuxia used to be very disgusted with reporters who secretly took photos of him. With his family background, the first crown prince of the capital, his extraordinary background, prominent power, and good looks, he became the object of public figures who were eager to find out more about him. In the eyes of the public, he was like a god. Man is a ridiculous thing. Chapter 1935. As the grandson of the richest man in the country, he was young but talented. He was completely different from the second son of a rich family. The public had always been curious about him. However, he did not like his privacy being pried into. When he first entered the Mu group, he was first exposed to the public in a national news video. He was sitting in the main seat and the camera flashed by. He became a hot topic online. The paparazzi started to take photos of him secretly. Of course, Wuxia was young and hot-blooded at that time. Those who took photos of him ended up in a sorry state. The worst thing was that the photos of him visiting his mother's grave were also published online. In a fit of anger, he was ruthless and banned the entire news agency. From then on, no entertainment reporters dared to pursue him. No one dared to offend this ruthless crown prince. How annoying! He's just like a fly. Xianxia did not like this feeling. However, as a public figure, this was something that had to be sacrificed. The public always had a strong desire to pry into celebrities. Just as Wuxia had expected, the next day was uneventful. In fact, after the entertainment reporter had gone home last night, he had worked through the night to produce a piece of news. When he finally submitted it to the chief editor for review, the chief editor had seen the familiar face of the man in the photo and had slammed the manuscript on his face. "Do you know the identity of the man in the photo? How dare you take photos of such a person? Do you want to implicate the entire website?" The entertainment reporter was confused and didn't know what to do. "Boss, what's going on? Do you know that there are 4 princes in the capital who cannot be offended? The first one is the big Buddha of the Mu group." When the reporter heard this, his mouth opened so wide that it could fit 2 eggs. "What? You mean that the man I took photos of is Wuxia? Have you heard of this name?" "Of course. It's like thunder in my ears." "Then why did you write it?" The chief editor was furious. If he had been careless, Disheng Financial Group would have announced a hostile takeover of them in less than 2 days once the photo was published on the company's website. Only then did the entertainment reporter understand. No wonder that man was so arrogant that day. It turned out that this person had a great background. It seemed that he was still too inexperienced and had almost offended someone he should not have offended. When he turned around, the chief editor could not sit still and broke out in a cold sweat. He immediately called Minyu and asked him to pass on his apology to Wuxia. Minyu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It was rare for there to be an entertainment company that didn't know their boss. They were inexperienced and didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He smiled and said, "I don't want this to happen again in the future." "Of course. This kind of thing will never happen again. I just hope that Chairman Mu won't be angry because of this. We didn't discipline her well enough, and this happened. We've put Chairman Mu in a difficult position." It's good that you know the rules. Our boss hates private matters the most. In the future, please give more guidance to those people under you. Don't make any more trouble." After hearing Min Yu's warning, the chief editor immediately thanked him profusely. It was only a few days before the opening of the film festival. Qin Zhou brought her to choose a gown. Yun Shirshir rushed to film for another 2 days before returning home early. On the way home, she received a call from Gong Jie. Chapter 1936. On the other end, Gong Jie's tone was light and cheerful. Yun Shirshir smiled. "Busy man, you're finally on holiday?" Gong Jie pursed his lips into a smile and said, "Yes. Sis, I want to go to Beijing for a walk, but I can't find a good guide. What do you think I should do?" "Alright, how about this? I'll pick you up in the afternoon and bring you out for some fun." "Okay." When Yun Shirshir reached home, she changed into a thick coat, paired it with a hat, a pair of sunglasses, and a mask. She went out in full gear. The weather was very good today. The sky was clear and the sun was shining brightly. It was the best time to go out for a walk. On the way, Yun Shirshir had already thought about it. Since it was not a holiday, it was not a bad idea to go on a road trip to the wildlife park. Gong Jie sent her a location. Yun Shirshir drove there using the GPS. It turned out to be the headquarters of Leji Group. When they drove into the park, Yun Shirshir was stunned by the majestic building. What a magnificent building! Yun Shirshir sighed in her heart. Leji Group was a global toy supplier. It had a very high status. 2 years ago, it was a toy factory that was on the verge of bankruptcy. Now, after 2 days of consolidation, it had become a toy empire. It was the world's #1 toy brand and was highly respected by children. In the past, when she bought gowns for Yu, she would always go to Leji's brand store to buy one. The service was good and the price was not too expensive. Moreover, the quality was good. Yu liked it very much and could not bear to put it down. However, she did not expect Leji Group's headquarters to be so magnificent. However, why was Gong Jie here? After Gong Jie got into the car, Yun Shirshir asked, "Why are you here?" Because Yu." Gong Jie was stunned for a moment before he subconsciously blurted out the truth. Fortunately, just as he was about to speak, he remembered that the boy had repeatedly reminded him to keep the secret for him. Thus, he stopped abruptly and did not continue speaking. Yu. Yun Shirshir was puzzled and confused. Didn't Yu like Leji's toys? Coincidentally, this company is also one of my business partners, so I came over to check it out. Gong Jie glossed over it and justified himself. Yun Shirshir nodded and smiled. "Yes, Yu likes Leji's toys very much. I can't bear to part with them." Gong Jie smiled, but he was complaining in his heart. "What do you mean by, can't put it down? That's just an illusion, okay?" In reality, Yu was the chief designer of the toys. He had a thick stack of toy blueprints in his study room. Before the toys were released to the market, he had gone through the blueprints several times to find out where they were lacking. After he perfected them, he put them into mass production. He was already sick of the toys before they hit the market. Yu had once complained to him, "Mommy's gift to me is so unoriginal. Other than Leji's toys, it's Leji's smart products. Can I say that every gift she gives me is a flagship product designed by me? I have to pretend that I like it very much. Otherwise, she will think too much. That at least shows that your designs are very good and are very popular in the market." Yu touched his forehead helplessly. "But I'm already sick of toys. I can't come up with anything new." Gong Jie could not help laughing when he thought of this. His stupid sister would never have thought that the chief designer of Leji's toys was her precious son.